Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto becomes anbu Commander Council bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by PlaguedAmbition and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. His black hair flickered in the wind as he watched the people below celebrate. A festival was being held on this day, October the 10th. The date of his little sister's birthday, and more importantly the day he lost his father. Minato stood proud from the top of the Hokage Tower as he addressed the people, causing the raven-haired man to snort. There was a time when he saw that man as his father. But that time passed. After all, what father in their right mind would seal a demon into his own children? Without noticing, Naruto's hand slowly made its way up to the corner of his eye, tracing the seal that was woven around it. Naruto saw a redhead slowly make its way up to stand next to the Hokage. He had to fight the urge to snarl at her. No matter what he did, no matter how nicely he went about, that bitch would not let him get to know his own little sister, the one that had to share the other half of his curse. He wished he had his mother. He had seen photos of her loving face, and knew if she was still alive all of this could have worked out. They could have been a happy family, but alas, he was exiled more or less, and his little sister was seen as Konoha's princess. He slowly closed his eyes, hiding their golden color from the world, before turning on his feet and heading back to his home, having had enough of the festivities for one night. His cloak flapping in the wind as he bounded across the rooftops, his feet barely making a sound as they touched the tiles he used to push back into the air. His little sister Natsumi, she would be starting the academy this year. No doubt her trip will be easier than his. The raven-haired teen found it funny. He was the bastard son of their greatest Kage, while his sister, who sadly was related to his whore of a stepmother, were seen as royalty. He hailed from two great clans, for crying out loud. His black sandals made no noise as he landed softly on the grass below him. He looked around quickly, making sure he wasn't followed. It wouldn't matter much if he was, as the animals wouldn't let anyone but him and a selected few near his house. But it was better to be safe than sorry. When the coast was clear, he pulled his traveling cloak around him tighter and stepped forward as the tigers came out to greet him before sulking back into the shadows. He was seen as the king of Training Ground 44. The animals knew this. Even the shinobi knew this. Appointments were ran past him for those who wanted to enter, as he was known to kill any that stepped inside the forest, giving it its name. The Forest of Death. With a small flick of his wrist, he opened the front door and trudged himself inside, hearing it close behind him. With a stretch of his arms, his cloak was removed and hung on the hanger being the door as he continued through to the kitchen in his shinobi garb. He wore black anbu pants and a skin-tight black t-shirt that came down to his wrists. He wore no flak jacket because, as far as the villagers was concerned, he was just a monster that didn't deserve a rank. He made his way into the kitchen and started the kettle, intent on having a cup of coffee to help wake himself up and bring some heat back into his body. Winter was just around the corner, he could feel as much. He did not understand how people figured out how to mark the changing of season, but he left it be, knowing it must have been someone smarter than he or a madman. He pulled out his mug and filled it with 2 teaspoons of the brown flaky gold he called coffee, before dusting a light layer of pixie dust over the top, sugar. The kettle gave its resounding click, letting him know its task was done. With a flick of his wrist, a thread of chakra was sent from his finger trip, deftly hooking around the kettle and dragging it to where he was with his mug, filling it with the steaming water. A few drops spilt onto his bench. The way he handled it was lazy, and he could have done it properly without making a mess, but this also helped his chakra control. He needed very fine control for that jutsu, and even doing just that little trick helped him to learn how to wield it better. The sun was setting outside as he grabbed a washcloth from the sink, quickly wiping up the mess he had made. It bathed his home in a natural orange light, making it feel more alive. He hated that feeling. It was painted a deep blue for a reason, so as to remain cold like he was taught to be. It was to remind him that there was no room for weakness in his life, no matter how appealing it may become, and finally it was to ward people off. He did not like weak-willed visitors. If they were going to bother him, the better have a bloody good reason. His coffee was quickly finished off afterwards, leaving a bitter taste in his mouth as he moved through his house and headed to his dojo, noticing the change in flooring as it became tatami. The soft feeling beneath his feet as he carefully moved onto his knees and gave a small bow, putting his forehead to the floor. As he sat back up straight, still kneeling on the floor, he closed his eyes and felt his power slowly wrap around him. The reason he was banished. The material he already knew used his chakra as a barrier of some kind to redirect the damage that would be done to him, such as if a kunai was to strike his side, instead of slicing him like it normally would, it would become a blunt force spread across the side hit to reduce the damage he took. He let it wrap around his ponytail and finished covering his body before slowly raising to his feet. His suit of armor, his curse and blessing. It was streamlined and silent. It did not get in his way, nor was it too visible. It could blend nicely into the sounding areas in a moment's notice, making him invisible to the naked eye. He felt a weight appear on his back and knew his bow was back in its place. He had spent so long working on this obsidian beauty that it was littered with seals that would make even Jiraiya cringe at their complexity. It was perfectly silent. It quickly applied a seal to the arrow when he notched it, masking all sound the arrow would make and masking any sound that would come from what it hits. It was his perfect long-range weapon, able to kill in the dead quiet of night without giving away his position. Next was his katana that rested lightly running down his spine. Its case was a very dark gray while the blade itself was a purple that was heavily tinted, making it much darker than normal so as it did not stand out too much. Packs of kunai rested on his thighs. They refilled by the suit, draining his chakra to forge the metal, allowing him to use them like they were going out of fashion if he needed to. He pulled his blade from its case and felt the small spark of lightning that ran down it because of his bloodlines. This suit framed his body and made him feel stronger than he ever could when he posed as a human. There was a faint knock at his door, showing how impressive his hearing was to hear it from over 50 meters away. Through closed doors and walls. He let the suit fall from his body into ash on the ground. He stared fondly at it for but a moment before making his way to the front door, opening it to see a group of anbu there. He sent a small glare their way and nodded, letting them know he wanted them to talk. Kurama-san, your friend is at it again. Tashiko's this time. He hated Minato at times. Not only did the man take his name from him, but he also forced him to allow this group of anbu onto his property for reasons such as these. I will leave in a moment, begone before I make you leave. He huffed, closing the door in their faces. He placed his cloak back over his shoulders and did the clasp at the front, sighing when he heard it click into place. He let his body shift away into smoke as the air carried him to where he needed to go. Enko's night out had slowly started to go downhill. It all started out like normal. Her and Kurenai went out to go have a few drinks. Sadly, it would seem that 2 drunk 16-year-olds is too much for the perverted Konoha to just sit and watch as the men started to become increasingly touchy towards them. Thus lead to the predicament she was in now, with her back to Kurenai as they were surrounded on all sides by lusting Chunin and Jounin alike. Things were not boding well for the two. I still find it interesting how often you can get yourself into trouble, Enko-san. Her eyes went wide as she heard his calm voice break across the ruckus that was being made by the drunken men. Some of them even dared to turn and saw the golden-eyed man looking rather bored with the entire situation he was now placed in. You are all too noisy for my liking. Please leave now. I am sure that no one wants to deal with you. Also remember to pay Tashiko for any damage you cause to his bar, or I will hunt you down for him. He tilted his head to the side when no one started to move. He rubbed some gunk away from his eyes and flicked it to the ground in disgust. If you wish to fight me so bad, please meet me out on the street. Do not stare like some common fangirl. It is unbecoming of shinobi. Kurenai was looking between Enko and the strange man. Who is that? She whispered so hopefully only her purple-haired friend would hear. Sadly, she did not know about Naruto's acute hearing. I am her handler, so to speak. They call me when she gets in trouble so things do not escalate from this level. Kurenai looked back to her friend to see her sheepishly nodded in agreement, while scratching the back of her head. A small red hue covering her cheeks, showing the sake they had been dining on had its effect on her still maturing body. There was some grunting from the males as some of them called him out on what he said and moved outside taunting him. A glint passed through his eyes, causing Enko to shiver where she stood. Even if she was only 2 years his junior, it felt like there were light years between them in skill. And that glint in his eyes had always promised pain since the moment he had become her handler. He motioned for the 2 girls to follow, and Enko quickly took Kurenai's hand, not wanting to be on his bad side with how he was now. Not again. Trust me, it is better to just listen to him now, just listen and watching. Kurenai nodded her head dumbly as she saw the group crowd around the raven-haired man with eyes like a snake. He centered himself in the crowd and lowered his stance to almost a crouch. One arrogant Chunin came in and attempted to sweep his bag leg. This attempt ended in Naruto putting a foot in his face and kicking him down into the dirt below them, watching as the man twitched for a few seconds before passing out. Seeing that no one else was as keen to get things going, he moved into a more relaxed stance, looking like he was ready to fence against someone, his right hand slightly forward at throat height, while his left sat at his sternum, both in a position to defend or attack if needed. His feet were relaxed and felt light, meaning they could move at a moment's notice. I beg you to not waste my time. A small group of Jounin rushed him. He hoped that their speed had been reduced by the amount of alcohol they had consumed tonight, or he seriously feared for Konoha's safety. One was taken out quick enough with a strong backfist to the face, knocking him down flat. Naruto spun quickly on the spot, catching the second one's arm, giving it a sharp twist before the bone broke free from its prison of skin. He gave a side backfist to the person that seemed much too interested in his arm for the man's own good. He saw the final man approaching him and just sighed, giving a small kick to the man's gut, which made him double over before hooking his leg around the man's neck and flipping them both in the air in order to build his momentum for the toss at the end of his move, which caused him to kick up a bit of dirt as the final man slid across the ground. Why you're a MMon, no, you're a demon through and through. Why you are even allowed in this village is beyond me. The speaker had gotten rid of his fear halfway through his talk. Either that or he seemed to remember he was a shinobi that should not show something quite so obvious as that to his opponent. Naruto tilted his head to the side and blinked his eyes at the man. Your point being, I am here to do what must be done. You fools are disturbing the peace, be gone. He waved his hand and expected the group to leave. He turned on his feet to address Enko when a bottle was smashed over the back of his head. He felt the small amount of blood flow out of the wound and drip down his back. I shall give you to the count of 10 to leave before I kill you for being such an incredibly dim-witted imbecile. Naruto did not even need to start counting as the once arrogantly smirking man looked ready to soil himself as he ran. They call me a demon then expect me to go down after being hit with a bottle, such idiots. He mused more to himself than the girls that were left, Kurenai's jaw threatening to unhinge from the angle it was held on while Enko pumped her fist up in the air. Kurama 32 to the villagers 0, looks like you are still ahead, Kurama-san. She tried to say politely at the end, knowing he could very well still be in his mood. He turned to her and gave her a small smile. Enko-san, aren't you meant to tell me when you plan on having a night out, so you say in your own words, by order of the council and Hokage? Naruto mused. He noticed Kurenai taking in his appearance and found it odd. He almost enjoyed her red eyes dancing over his body almost. I forgot? Naruto gave her a small TSK and shook his head, showing he disapproved. I know it is still rather early, but I think that is enough of a night out, don't you agree, Enko-san? And he motioned to Kurenai for her name. Said teen jumped in her shoes when he pointed towards her. She too pointed at herself, causing him to nod. Yes, you, what is your name, friend of Enko-san? Kurenai. She stuttered out under his golden gaze. He shifted the thought around in his head for a few moments. Crimson, just like her eyes, it fit in a strange way. I guess the polite thing would be to escort you two home. Enko nodded happily. It seemed he was not in such a grumpy mood anymore. That was always good, seeing as he could be very violent when he was. The group had quickly reached Kurenai's apartment. As she bid them farewell, she looked at Naruto for a few seconds longer than what is expected, causing him to tilt his head in confusion. He felt a small nudge in his ribcage and looked to see Enko poking him with her elbow. She totally has a crush on you, Kurama-s. Nah, I am just going to call you Kurama. Naruto studied her for a few more seconds before laughing internally. Then I shall call you Gaki. Now come on, Gaki, let's get you to home. He taunted, only stopping when he saw her downcast expression. What happened, Enko? He dropped all kinds of formality, mostly because he knew she wasn't a big fan of it. Either was he, but it showed that he was still human and not some rampaging monster. I got kicked out of my apartment today. I was going to try to seduce a boy into taking me home and letting me spend the night so I could fix it in the morning. Naruto internally snorted at the idea. It was stupid. You can sleep on my couch tonight. Tomorrow I can help you find a new house. But just for future references, trying to seduce a boy normally means you wish to sleep with him, not in his house. She blushed heavily at the thought, having not planned that far ahead, only just noticing that he had said she could stay the night. Really, Kurama? You would do that? He gave a small shrug of his shoulders. It makes my job easier, seeing as I know where you are. He gave her a small smile as she gave her apologies. Later that night he was called to the Hokage's office. The black-haired teen, who seemed to look much like Madara had in his glory days, looked across at the man who would have been his father, that is if things had have stayed how they were. The first thing he noticed was that there were no anbu in the room. His black hair, no longer held in its ponytail, flowed down his back and framed his face, making his golden animalistic eyes ever more piercing. You called Hokage-sama? His voice was cold, showing he was not happy to be here. He had complied like normal and showed, even if he felt a small amount of hatred he could not explain towards the man. Minato stood from behind his desk and passed a file over to Naruto, the black-haired teen reading through it quickly, raising his brows at the end. It is a 4-year job when I can't trust anyone else. Naruto snorted and put the file calmly on the Kage's desk. Are you not worried that I will betray you? I am only your bastard demonic offspring that holds no love for anything. People are not sure whether I will attack them or not for just walking down the same path. Minato grimaced at how calm and collected he could sound about the event. He had listened to Kushina, and because of that he had created a monster. You are loyal to the village, not its villagers. That is why I can trust you with this position. You cannot be bribed, as you have no need for money. You are tougher to crack than Ibiki and scarier on the battlefield than the man you resemble. Naruto inwardly smirked at the praise from his father while he stayed calm on the outside, his face impassive. You do not need to tell me what I am good at. I trained to be that way after all. I will agree under 2 conditions. He started. Minato motioned for him to explain. I will not be some pawn for the council to play with. I will only take orders from yourself, in person. Minato could see the logic behind that. Naruto's chakra was too violent for a normal genjutsu to work against. The Iliosun would just be rubbed away like it was sand. Secondly, when I become a jounin, the council will not force a team on me. I will take one if I choose to. Minato nodded. The terms were reasonable enough. Sounds like we have a deal. Oni. Minato held his hand out to shake Naruto's when he saw the suit that would become feared spread over the boy's body and cover every inch of who he really was. His voice, now sounding distorted and demonic, came though the strange fox-like Oni-like helmet. My blade serves Konoha. He gave a small bow and vanished into the night sky, already taking off home. Tomorrow he would set up for his new job. Kurenai sat on her bed in her small one-person appartement, thinking to herself as she clutched her legs closer to her body. She wasn't ready for bed yet, so she was using this method to stay warm, as it seemed to be too much effort at the moment to turn the heater on. She had made chunin earlier in the week. Tonight was meant to be their night to celebrate, but she could see the logic behind Kurama's words. She wondered weakly why Anko never told her about him. Was he hiding something? She let out a small groan and flopped down into her bed, deciding she may as well try to get some sleep. His voice was charming, and he was sounded by this aura that she found attractive. Gah! She exclaimed, flipping over and putting her face into the pillow. She was too old to be having a schoolgirl crush. Her brow furrowed thinking about it. He looked like someone she should know. Someone important. She remembered his fight. He was a little coxy, but he had a very good reason, as she saw how quickly he dispatched Jounin. It made her wonder what chance she would have against him. More than liking it would be slim, or non-existent even. It made her wonder why someone like that was tasked with watching over Anko. That was her last thought as she slowly drifted off to sleep. She awoke early in the morning, quickly finishing her routine before walking outside to head to the local dango and coffee shop, knowing it was where she met Anko every morning. She saw the black-haired teen walking alongside her again, and she inwardly frowned, thinking that maybe Anko claimed him last night. She was further convinced when Anko parted away from him and bid him thanks for letting her stay the night. Turning away from Naruto, she saw the look on Kurenai's face and gave a small childish giggle. We didn't do anything, Kurenai. Geez, what do you take me for? The raven-haired girl deadpanned but decided not to bother answering the question. Whatever, it's not like I cared anyway. She crossed her arm over her chest and gave a small huff. You so do, Anko chimed as she walked into the store to order their breakfast. Naruto arrived in his new office with his suit already in place. Okay, the best way to describe this thing is to picture Madara's perfect Susanoo being worn as a suit of skin-tight armor. A very deep blue-black main coloring with a slight crimson tint to the trim. Hope that helps. He calmly walked further into his office and saw a note on the desk asking him to show up in the council room at 9. Looking at the clock on his desk, he saw he had only 15 minutes, and just decided to walk over, seeing as he didn't exactly have enough time to do anything else. He could hear the noisy debate that was happening inside and figured that they wouldn't hear him even if he knocked, so using his preferred method of travel, turning into smoke, he filtered into the room through the keyhole and reformed, standing directly behind the Hokage, freaking out many of the seat holders in the room when they finally took notice. One larger civilian member stood up in outrage. The thought of someone just breaking into the council rooms like the rules didn't apply to them. Who do you think you are? Barging in here and covering your face from us? I demand you tell us your name. Naruto tilted his head to the side before looking at Minato. He didn't bother to answer the loud man. He already told Minato that he would not be ordered by them. Minato gave a single clap of his hands to gather everyone's attention solely onto him and Naruto. The person behind me is a solution to the amount of corruption I have seen from this council. This is our new anbu commander, Oni. Naruto gave a small bow of his head and was glad his face was hidden, or the Uzumaki clan head would see a very heated glare sent her way. He will only take orders from myself, thus he holds no loyalty to the council, only the Hokage. A few of the civilians gasped at what he said, while the ninja's side nodded in agreement, having had enough of these greedy freeloaders bribing their way to the top. Naruto stepped forward slightly and stood next to Minato, looking across the room at all that were present. If I find your actions to be a threat to this village, I will kill you. This is your warning. He looked to Minato, who gave him a nod, telling him two things: that he agreed with how he handled that, and that he could leave for now. Naruto once again turning into his wisp of smoke and leaving through the vents like he was never there to begin with. Oni stood in the middle of the Hokage office, still covered by the suit to hide his identity. Remove your mask. Not for much longer though, as he reached up and pulled the mask away, the form-hugging suit vanishing, leaving him in crimson red armor, his unkempt black locks falling down his back and going to the top of his legs. His messy hair falling down past his chin across the front, the left side of his face covered while the right side was framed by the locks. Madara's hair except mirrored. His visible eye a vibrant red with three-tone. The anbu in the room gasped and shakily drew their blades. Madara! They dashed forward in an attempt to protect their Hokage. Naruto with little effort parried all the strikes that were thrown at him from the anbu, even going as far as to not draw a blade of his own. Stand down, anbu! The blonde-haired Kage roared from across his desk. His hands had stayed intertwined throughout the entire event, while Naruto looked forward, an apathetic gaze on his face. You really do look like your grandfather, though. I can see which side you got your looks from. That hurt. It hurt so much that he had to find out on that night rather than from the mouth of his own father. He had forcibly grown somewhat closer to Minato. When you are the leader of his private army and only take orders from him face to face, it is quite hard not to. A locket hung loosely around Naruto's neck. UI was engraved into the silver piece of jewelry. People will ask questions. Minato grimaced at his son's hardened voice. He could not blame him, though the missions Naruto had completed were something inhuman and would really test your sanity. You can turn your Sharingan off now, Naruto. Naruto gave a small nod and his eyes turned back to their normal gold but now held a black Fuma Shuriken pattern in the iris. Minato had read the report from his son. His eyes had changed when he unlocked his Sharingan, mutating even their natural look. Looking through my natural eyes feel like a foreign concept now. He cracked his neck to the side and let out a small groan. Now that my 4 years are up, I guess I will be demoted to Jounin. Naruto stated. It was what they agreed on, so why would it have changed? Not exactly. You have been given Sannin traveling rights. This means you can travel through any nation we are neutral with, showing only your ninja ID. I honestly think you would be able to do that without the rights, mostly because you look like a clone of Madara. Naruto snorted at what his father was saying. I will be making an announcement in a few moments across the village. Anbu, if you would? They all gave a bow and left the room. Are we going to return to our estranged relationship, father? His eyes gave away no hint of emotion as he continued to just look out of the windows behind the blonde-haired Kage. Kushina will be angry. Naruto felt like slapping the man in front of him. After all this time he was still so whipped. But she will have to learn to deal with it. The past 4 years we connected again. You made me remember what it was like to have a son, thank you, Naruto. He gave a small smirk to his father. She will try to take action against me using the council, we both know this. Minato smiled widely in his seat. She will not. I will be putting my foot down when the meeting is called shortly after the announcement. Minato motioned for Naruto to follow him as they moved through the tower, people going flat against the walls as the pair walked. I do not know whose path they are moving out of, yours or mine. The blonde joked, causing Naruto to crack a smile of sorts as they reached the roof, the sunlight shining down on them. Naruto looked across to where he stood 4 years ago, seeing a new member of Anbu in the very same position. He saw the figure flinch at Naruto's appearance, and reach for his blade that was situated on his back. This all happened as Minato's hand slowly moved down to rest on his son's shoulder, putting the Anbu at ease. People of Konoha. The crowd looked up and the duo on the roof heard screaming. I need you all to calm down. Minato tried to relax the crowd, but his efforts seemed wasted. Listen to your Kage maggots. The Anbu that had not been in the room now knew who exactly was standing next to the Hokage, their old commander. Naruto's voice froze the people on the ground in their place. Well, that was quite effective. This man beside me is not Uchiha Madara, this is his grandson and my son Uchiha Naruto. Minato had offered him to take the Namake's name. Naruto politely turned him down, saying that it would cause more trouble than it was worth. He is with me today, so you do not give him the reaction he received when you first took notice of him everywhere he goes in the village. That is all. Minato turned on his feet and moved away from the edge, only taking a few steps before he started laughing. The looks on their faces. It was priceless. Naruto frowned. He also knew where he got his personality from. I think I will take my leave now, father. Minato nodded as he held his sides in from the pain. Naruto shook his head. Sometimes he couldn't believe he was this man's son. He vanished in soundless black flames appearing outside of his house. It had been so long since he had been here. Hopefully Anko had taken care of it. A large tiger stalked out from the bush to his right, moving into sniffing range before letting Naruto pace peacefully. Strange how animals are smarter than humans at times. He figured Anko would either be out or asleep, so he just entered the house, walking through the corridor and coming into the living room, where he was greeted with the sight of a topless Anko shifting back and forth. He could hear male groaning, only making the matter worse. Really, Anko on my couch? The purplete slowly turned her head at those words and saw a face she hadn't in some time. Wow, 4 years really does change a person. She pulled herself off the man Kami. He was so happy to see she was in jeans that were still done up. It wasn't as bad as he had thought. What did I say about one-night stands? Naruto growled out as he moved closer to the couch. Anko jumped in front of him and waved her hands defensively. If you came home every now and again, you might actually know that we have been dating for a few months. Where have you been anyway? Naruto just shook his head at the girl, not knowing whether he could actually believe her or not. He would just take her word for it this time, though. Now that the job is over, I can legally tell you, I was the Anbu commander. Anko looked like a fish out of water as he finished his sentence. Naruto looked over the back of the couch and saw a scared Chunin laying flat and shivering where he was. When he looked up to see the crimson eyes and what he believed to be a dead man, he promptly passed out. That was actually kind of fun. He looked over to Anko for a few moments. So you and Irika? She nodded hesitantly, answering his question. Well, good for you too. I hope everything works out. She nodded once again, but her eyes slowly steeled. Mister, we are going out drinking tonight. Naruto rose a brow in question to the small girl, giving him orders. It was strange to receive them from anyone but his father. He slowly nodded and Anko motioned towards the locket around his neck. Who is you? I. Flashback. Oni was crouched down on top of a tilted roof. Beside him was Weasel and Anbu he had taken under his wing, so to speak, anyway. Are you sure you are up for this? He heard Weasel take in a deep breath before giving a nod. You work your way and I will work out to you. He saw Weasel snap his head up, about to protest. I will leave Sasuke alive. I am not heartless despite the rumors that go around. Itachi nodded shakily and removed his mask. They are our clan, they deserve to see the faces of the men that killed them so they know who to curse in the afterlife. Naruto nodded and forced the mask away from his face with his chakra, showing his crimson eye to the world. I will see you soon. Good luck, Oni-sama. Itachi vanished in a flock of crows while Naruto stealthily moved to the center of the compound, only a few moments passing since he started. He dropped in through the window of Itachi's room that was left open prior to him leaving tonight. This house posed the biggest risk as it had an alert button to all those that were ready to rebel. He moved to the master bedroom and slipped in without a decibel being made. He was perfectly silent as he sat on the headboard above Fugaku, his katana held in reverse grip, resting a millimeter away from the man's forehead. A single slip and he would wake him. He was tired and already bored with thinking of the many different ways he could kill this traitor. With a single swift movement he raised the blade an inch away before slamming it straight through the man's skull. He pushed too far and heard the fabric of the pillow underneath his head tear. This caused the woman next to him to stir. She slowly woke and was ready to panic when she saw a sword sticking out of her husband's head. Looking above her, she saw him crouch down with a finger over his lips. She felt a kunai tap against her throat and gulped. I knew your mother, she whispered out with a frown on her face. He removed the finger from his lips and tapped the kunai again, letting her know to continue. Uchiha Izanami, the daughter of Uchiha Madara. Your grandfather, did you not wonder where you got your looks from? The woman smiled a warm and kind smile at him. It confused him deeply. He was here to kill her, yet she was not afraid. She was as beautiful as her name suggested, and as kind as they come. Plus, she was your father's first choice. That has to count for something, right? He did take pride in that. Kushina was only able to get her claws into Minato because his mother had passed away. I know why you are here tonight. I know what must be done. In my drawer there is a note that was meant to be for Itachi. I saw you some years ago and suspected that you may have been her son. Looks like I was right. She was making this very difficult for him, being so cheery, telling him everything he wanted to know. I just want you to know, we deserve what you and Itachi are doing. We have wronged you almost as much as we did the village. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Mikoto as she continued to talk. The clan elders poisoned your mother so she wouldn't live through childbirth. It was their punishment for failing pregnant with a non-Uchiha out of wedlock. She was to die if she went through with the pregnancy. A drop of liquid fell onto Mikoto's cheek. It fell from above her. She looked up into Naruto's teary eyes. Your mother said she couldn't kill you, not even if her life depended on it. I saw her hold you for the first time with the tears running down her face as her heart rate dropped. Pleaded for just a few more seconds as you wrapped your tiny hands around her finger. Naruto was now not the only with tears on his face, as a few had started to slip from the Uchiha beneath him. Minato had to leave the room as he couldn't handle watching her die. He took the entire blame on himself and tried to keep you as happy as he could, only it wasn't to last. Well, you know how the rest of the story goes, Naruto. He nodded his head in agreement. I am sorry and thank you, Mikoto. She bowed her head, watching as the kunai came closer to her skin. He saw the panic in her eyes. Itachi already asked, Sasuke is to be kept alive. She nodded and slowly closed her eyes, waiting for her death. He made it as quick and painless as possible. She shared a bed with a monster. As far as he was concerned, she had suffered enough in her life. He cleaned his kunai and removed his sword from Fugaku's head, flicking the blood on the ground as he moved to the drawers that Mikoto had mentioned, finding a note just like she had said. Itachi, I understand what you have to do and know that must be difficult, but please can you grant me 2 last requests? Look after Sasuke, but don't coddle him, okay? He doesn't want to be babied anymore. He wants to be more like you, strong and brave. Please find the man named Kurama/Naruto, give him this key and tell him about my deposit box at Konoha's first bank. I thank you for cleaning up the mess your father made, my son. I do not regret having you for even a moment as I think of what is to come, as this is as much my fault as anyone's. Your loving mother, Mikoto. Naruto noticed the key and picked it up, folding the note cleanly and storing them both inside his suit for protection. He steeled his nerves. He hoped there was not another house like this. Itachi left the village that night. It housed too many memories for him to remain. Naruto understood what he was talking about and let him go with a head start before reporting him missing as he held the deposit box which was left for him. Opening it, he found a handful of sealed scrolls and a few ninjutsu ones. But out of everything, a silver locket lay in the middle. It stood out and felt like it was calling to him. He gently picked it up and opened it, seeing a photo of his mother and father standing beside each other, happily resting their hands on a small bump on Izanami's stomach. He let a lone tear fall at finally having a family picture. He undid the clasp and placed it around his neck, gently doing it up again as he packed up the contents of the box into a sealing scroll and put the box back where it belonged. Thank you again, Makoto. Flashback end. Enko saw the small tear that fell down his face and wondered if she said something wrong. He gently cleared his throat and opened the locket, showing it to Enko, who gasped. Uchiha Izanami, my mother. Enko looked up at him, and for the first time in her life she could honestly say he was happy. She moved forward to hug him but was met with a hand stopping her. Put some clothes on first. Enko let out a small eep, noticing that her top half was in fact still bare. With her bra and tight shirt now covering her, she moved forward and hugged Naruto. Not as good now that the moment is gone. She mumbled into his chest, causing him to laugh. At least we are both fully clothed now. She nodded and he smiled. It was strange without you around, it's good that you're back. She shone a bright smile up at him. Yeah, they didn't talk too much before he had vanished, but when she thought about it, every time things were about to get really ugly in her life, he had popped up and made them better for a few moments. It's good to be back, Gaki. He smirked as he rested his chin on top of her head and felt her smack her fists into his chest playfully. Want to wake up your boyfriend, and we will go for a drink? I could use a few bottles. He chuckled sheepishly, and she leant back and laughed at his sheepish look. Tashiko's, Naruto was honestly not surprised she had dragged him there. You really weren't joking, crowds do part as you move. Enko said in awe, and she hung on to Irika's arm, said Chunin was feeling incredibly out of place where he was. It did not take him long at all to make it to the bar. Eyes watched him with extra caution as he sat down wearing a pair of jeans and a nice long-sleeved t-shirt with said sleeves rolled up to his elbows, the silver locket in place around his neck. Enko, I got your message. Naruto knew that voice, so he turned around to greet them. Sadly, he was so used to having his Sharingan on that he had completely forgotten about turning it on to scare Irika earlier. The figure jumped forward and pushed Enko and Irika away from him and held them behind her. How are you even alive, Madara? Naruto tilted his head to the side. He had thought she was the smart one. Hey, Madara, turn your Sharingan off. Enko made sure to put air quotations around his grandfather's name. Naruto did just that, his golden eyes coming back into play. He saw Kurenai's jaw slowly lower till it got to the point where it was impossible to fall any further. Ka. She stuttered, causing him to smile towards her. Call me Naruto. Uchiha Naruto. He gave a small bow that moved his hair just enough to see the outline of the seal around his left eye. He raised his head to see Kurenai nodding in shock. Well, how about the first round is on me anyway? Questions were thrown at Naruto left and right about what he had been up to. He answered as best as he was allowed to be. Lol. Enko tells me you were the Anbu commander, is that true? Naruto nodded and rolled up his left sleeve, showing the Anbu tattoo with a shuriken behind it, all flowing seamlessly together. Irika let out a whistle as he looked at it. Well, now I have something to tell my students. Not every day you get to see that now, is it? Naruto just shrugged his shoulders. It isn't every day that one retires and is allowed to talk about it. The rules of Anbu were clear. You were not allowed to talk about Anbu until you were out of Anbu. A small blush was adorning Kurenai's face. The fact that the small crush she had on him 4 years ago never went away did not help the fact that he was incredibly good-looking. She could see the definition in his biceps. Not to mention when Enko lifted up his shirt and told Irika to get ripped like Naruto. It was really not helping at all. Okay, maybe it did make her feel just a little better. Enko is still pretty intense, isn't she? His voice, it sounded so calm and full of life, different to what she would expect from an ex-Anbu. She looked around and met his gold eye with her crimson. His hair moved slightly as he sat next to her, allowing her to see the full seal around his left eye. It looked like tribal markings around his eye. She thought it was just another tattoo. Why do you hide the tattoo around your eye? He flinched a little when she asked. Because it isn't a tattoo. His voice had turned hard from that little question. Kurenai looked down a little. It must be a sensitive subject. I'm sorry. Her head snapped up. She had just been going to say those words when he beat her to them. You didn't know. I shouldn't have acted the way I did. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Kurenai swayed lightly in her seat, the amount of alcohol in her system having finally taken effect. She drunkenly leaned in towards Naruto. Said raven-haired man turned when he felt her hot breath against the side of his neck. Hey Naruto, Hokage-sama wants to see you. Kurenai snapped her head around so fast that her hair almost managed to whip Naruto in the face. Thank you, Asuma-san, I shall take my leave. He said goodbye to the group and passed a large pile of money to Enko. I don't know if I will be coming back tonight. So have fun, my shout. He gave her a small smirk, and her eyes widened at the amount he gave her and nodded with passion. She looked over to Kurenai and mouthed the girl a quick sorry as Naruto walked out of the door. What do you want, Asuma? The crimson-eyed woman bit, clearly showing she was not pleased with what he had caused to happen. Really, he couldn't have waited like 5 minutes? I just wanted to say that I was stupid and I want you back. Kurenai sucked the bottom of her lip and shook her head from side to side, trying to stop herself from laughing. You're fucking joking, right? When he didn't make any changes to what he said, she continued. You try to force yourself onto me for my first time, then come back to me when I am about to do some I want to. She continued to shake her head at the man. Asuma-san, I believe you should leave. The voice come from behind the bar, and a very pissed-off bartender was looking the bearded jounin in the eyes. Yeah, I get it. He already has you under his control. He waved offhandedly as he walked away, only to be slapped down to the ground by Anko. Take that back, you sexist pig. Naruto stood in front of his father's desk. He was wearing the same clothes he had been at the bar. Minato smiled at seeing the locket around his son's neck still. Now I will keep this quick. I was wondering if you wanted to be a judge at the jounin exams. They are coming up in 4 months. Naruto gave a small shrug of his shoulders. I don't see any issue with it. Would you like for me to make anbu recommendations as well? Minato tapped the end of his nose and pointed at his son. I know you would catch on. Naruto smirked at his father. Hokage-sama, a fight has broken out at Tashiko's. Naruto sighed and Minato turned to look at him. I was just there. The blonde nodded in understanding. I will take care of it, father. No need to send any anbu, I shall make it quick. Minato nodded and Naruto was consumed by black flames appearing at the front of Tashiko's just in time, by the looks of things catching 2 fists that were about to hit the person standing either side of him. He turned his head to each side and saw Anko and Asuma. His crimson eyes seeing the scared look behind her eyes, he knew how to read people and knew who was at fault. It made it even easier when the man would not make eye contact with him. If the Hokage was in fact not looking for me, I may have suspected that you sent me there to cause trouble, Asuma-san. He tried to blurt out that Anko started it. Be that as it may, Asuma-san, our night was quite delightful until you showed up. Now will you leave quietly, or shall I take you to the anbu cells? The bearded jounin snorted. Of course you would have the anbu under your thumb. Naruto shook his head in pity at the man. Yes, they will listen to me. But no, I am not controlling them, it is out of respect. Asuma broke free from Naruto's grip and went to take a swing again. The raven-haired Uchiha gently guided Anko away as he blocked Asuma's strike. Attacking me while I was trying to defuse the situation, have you no honor, Asuma? When he got no answer from the man, he took a step back and rested his left hand on his hip, turning his Sharingan off. I will gladly fight you if that is what you wish, for someone to blow your own ego. The smoker jounin raised his fists up to his chest, taking on a slightly more relaxed boxing guard. You're going to need those eyes to keep up. I was a guardian, you know. Asuma said as he dashed forward. Naruto's hand shot through the man's guard and crushed his windpipe to the level where he wouldn't die before sending a quick back fist to the side of the man's skull, causing him to fly off to the side, stumping as he gasped for air before falling over. And I was the anbu commander. I don't see your point. Asuma's eyes went wide just before he passed out. That is a lesson to all of you, do not become overconfident in your abilities. It will lead to your downfall. He turned on his feet and headed over to Anko, who was cheering. Iruka was shaking his head at his girlfriend's antics and Kurenai was looking at Naruto strangely. So what did your old man want? Kurenai's head shot back and forth between Anko and Naruto. What, you didn't know? Kurenai quickly shook her head. Father asked me if I would judge the upcoming jounin exams. He saw Anko and Kurenai stiffen. Well, looks like this will be more interesting than I thought. He felt a pair of delicate arms wrap around his chest and looked down to see Kurenai leaning against him. Thank you? I know I should have defended myself, but he outranks and outclasses me. I guess I just didn't have the backbone. Naruto rested a hand on her head. It's alright, he seemed like It's all okay now though, right? He asked jokingly. She nodded her head, and he looked up at the stars in the sky. Kurenai figured now was as good a chance as any and started leaning up to kiss him, only stopping herself this time. She was nervous and had sobered up a little since before. Hey, you okay, Kurenai? She nodded weakly into his chest, ashamed at not being able to just do what she wanted. Why, yeah, I am just tired. What a stupid lie. Oh, how about I walk you home then? She quickly agreed to the suggestion and walked alongside him out of the bar, leaving Asuma where he fell only to be picked up by a shadow moments later. He is so heavy, Naruto-sama. The figure groaned out to itself before jumping away to the infirmary. We definitely need to get those two together. A certain Purpley cheered while the man next to her agreed. Fail. Naruto called out as he sat in the middle of a clearing in the forest of death. He heard some grumpy mumbling from the one standing behind him as a clone rested a kunai against her throat. How am I even meant to do this? He felt like chuckling but found that may be kind of insulting. Would you believe me if I told you the water walking exercise? There was no sound from the person behind him, causing a smirk to spread across his face. Are you ready to try again, Anko? He heard her footsteps grow softer before disappearing altogether. With his eyes still closed, he extended his senses, trying to hear her footfalls. With his eyes still closed, his right arm snapped up and his fingers grasped her wrist. There is too much emotion behind your strike. I know this exam means a lot to you, Anko, but believe me, You need to be able to detach yourself from emotion while on higher tier missions. He slowly opened his eyes and gave her a soft smile, causing her to blush. Stop doing that, Baka. That is exactly what I was talking about, Gaki. He chimed in, waving a finger on his still free hand back and forth like he was scolding a child. Your infiltration skills are almost Jounin level. The rest is still sitting at high Chunin. She frowned as he spoke. But we still have over 3 months to bring those up to speed. I will help train you for the exam. Her eyes brightened while his darkened. She is going to hate me when all this is done. He inwardly mused. He was not wrong. 2 weeks had passed in the blink of an eye for the pair. Enko lay panting on the ground while Naruto looked like he had just walked out of the house to start the day. You are improving in leaps and bounds, Enko. When was the last time you had someone instruct you? His question seemed innocent enough to him, at least. It would have been before I left with Orochimaru? She said between pants, and Naruto nodded his head. To raise from genin to this level of skill, all on your own, no less, quite impressive in the amount of time that was allotted. I believe if someone had have taken the time to train you when you were younger, you could have been hailed a prodigy. Enko looked up to meet his golden smiling eyes. She was one of the few people who could say she was able to picture Madara smiling. I believe we are done for the day. Enko went to pick herself up but found she was pushed to the floor and a hand shot down, hovering over her chest. She was about to scream pervert until she saw the green glow around his hand. When did you learn how to heal? Naruto looked up at her for such a silly question. I was anbu for nearly 14 years, 4 of those spent as the commander. All anbu have basic medic training. That was the first time she had heard how long he had really been in anbu. It had made no sense when he had told her he was the leader, as she had never known him to have been in anbu. Things started to fall in place, and she looked at him in shock. Oni? She questioned weakly, to which he nodded. Oni had been the only male anbu to look out for her when she had been younger. Wow, you have looked after my ass for how many years now? Naruto mulled the thought over in his head. Close to 10, I would say. In a way that makes you like a brother, yeah? Naruto could not see the logic behind that but shrugged nonetheless. From now on you shall be Oni-ai-chan. His face turned to a deadpan expression. That was so lame, Gaki. Are you even trying anymore? Enko gave a huff from where she was sitting as he finished healing her minor injuries. You should be fine to keep training in about half an hour if that is what you want to do. She nodded and gave her thanks before walking away, leaving Naruto sitting in the clearing. A large white tiger came and sat in front of him, causing him to raise his brow. What are you up to, buddy? The large cat gave a big yawn and tilted its head to the side, looking at the black-haired man. Well, I am a little hungry. Want to come grab something to eat? The large cat stood and moved to stand beside Naruto, his back coming past the man's hip. Naruto was not some small man either. He stood at a decent height of 6 feet 2 inches. This was just one large cat. Enko and Kurenai were panting as they stood across from one another. The crimson-eyed genjutsu user was impressed at how much Enko had improved. Finally putting some effort behind your training? She questioned, causing the purpley to frown. Always did. I finally have someone to teach me now, though. Kurenai wasted no time in questioning who. Naruto, of course. The way she said it made it sound like Kurenai had asked a stupid question. Does he know genjutsu? She questioned. Enko thought about it for a moment before shrugging, not actually being able to remember him ever using it. I do. A voice calmly stated from next to her ear, causing her body to shiver as Naruto's body was slowly revealed along with an incredibly large tiger. Naruto saw Enko looking at his new friend in question. Meet a Tailong? It looked like the cat shrugged at the name. Okay, from now on you can be Tailong. Enko nodded dumbly while the tiger moved over to Kurenai and forced her to pat him. Well, you seem quite friendly, Tai. Kurenai turned her head to look at Naruto with question evident in her eyes. Would you be able to help me train for the exams as well? Naruto gave a small shrug from where he stood. I will help out when I am free, which seems to be quite a bit at the moment. He chuckled at the end while rubbing the back of his head. Anyway, I should leave you two to it. Me and Tai were just on our way back home after lunch. Enko looked at the tiger, then back at Naruto. You just walked him into the village and no one questioned you. Naruto looked at the girl like she was an idiot for a few moments. Gaki, not only do I look like a carbon copy of my grandfather, I am the Hokage's eldest. People kind of just turn a blind eye when I do things like that, plus he is friendly enough. If he did get spooked and try to attack someone, I just cast a genjutsu over him. Can't have the villagers getting hurt when they don't deserve it. Kurenai nodded and looked to Naruto. Are you free at the moment? He gave her a small nod. Do you think we could, Enko looked at Kurenai. It was clear her friend was not well versed with how to talk to men. I can help you out if that's what you are asking? She nodded with a slight hue on her face. Can you perform a genjutsu? She nodded and brought her hands up in front of her body to channel chakra, holding the ram's seal with them both, the area surrounding him turning into the Uchiha district, causing him to frown before quickly swiping his hand and dispelling the illusion. He sent a small glare across at Kurenai. She hung her head down in shame. I shouldn't have used that illusion, I'm sorry. Demonic scenery has the ability to make the captive see an area that brings them fear. Naruto knew that genjutsu well enough. The scene around them all changed while Naruto had not moved a muscle, or so it seemed. The clearing was covered in a dark mist blocking out all their vision. Did you see what I did? He questioned, letting the illusion fall from around them. Both gave a small shake of their heads. A simple trick that can be used to catch your opponents off guard. Kurenai tried to cast the illusion again, but with one hand this time. The illusion took much longer to cast this time, and he saw a small sheen of sweat form on her forehead glistening in the afternoon sun. With a swipe of his hand he dispelled it again, letting the district fade away into the air. Now hold the genjutsu over the hand, channeling the chakra. He motioned to his left hand that was down by his side, hanging like one would if they were standing lazily. She felt his illusion creep into place, his hand never moving a muscle. Again he quickly dispelled the genjutsu and looked at Kurenai. The art of illusions is about tricking your opponent. If you mix this in with an evasive style of combat, you could trick your opponent into thinking you are a bunshin. The raven-haired woman let her eyes widen at the prospect, having never thought of something like that. Meaning while they are distracted looking for the real you, you could strike from right in front of them? Naruto nodded at her question and watched as she applied the henge on her hand and tried again. She was struggling to cast the illusion while maintaining the genjutsu over her hand, while at the same time trying to cast demonic scenery onto Naruto. It took some time and Kurenai had started to pant. The genjutsu around her hand was shaky, but she had managed to cast the intended one onto Naruto. It will take some time, but once you get the hang of that we can move on to holding a chain of genjutsu while casting a multiple layered one. Kurenai started to go pale and started to sway where she stood. Naruto closed the distance and put her down on the ground gently. You should have just told me you were running low. We could have taken a break, you know. There was a small amount of worry in his voice, something Kurenai found both thrilling and heart-wrenching. I didn't want to waste your time. He looked at her for a few moments before laughing softly. Don't worry about me, Kurenai. Worry about yourself first. Genjutsu, while not the most physically strenuous, it does put the most strain on your mind out of the three types. If you start feeling tired or uneasy, you should be careful about what you attempt. That was Genjutsu 101. She felt slightly angry that he was reciting things to her that she had already been told. When she looked at him, it wasn't like he was trying to lecture her, it was more like he was trying to protect her. She leaned her head onto his shoulder. He passed it off as her being exhausted. He reached in behind his loose shirt and pulled out a scroll, scribbling quickly along it, filling it with lines upon lines of information, causing her eyes to widen. He finished and tied the ribbon around the outside into a nice bow before dropping it into her lap. Inside of it are a list of tips and tricks I have found that help me with genjutsu. I don't know if they will do the same for you, but it can't hurt. She inhaled deeply through her nose, taking in his scent. It was strange, but she knew it just where from. Strangely, she was drawn to thoughts of the flowers in her apartment. Belladonna, that's what it was. Such a strange yet appealing scent. The plant berries have a somewhat sweet taste to them but are incredibly toxic. When she thought about Naruto, it seemed fitting, a sweet man who was incredibly deadly. A sigh escaped her lips as she continued to lean against him. Earth to Kurenai? He chimed out, trying to get her attention. Huh! She stumbled out, focusing on his face as it was incredibly close to hers at the moment, causing her to blush. I asked if you were feeling okay? She looked into his bright golden eyes, feeling them bore into her. She rested a hand on his chest, causing her blush to intensify. I am feeling a little lightheaded. Is it okay if we just sit here for a little? She asked, looking completely innocent of trying anything. Yeah, that sounds cool, he replied, giving her a friendly smile. Maybe she isn't as clueless as I thought? Anko mumbled to herself from nearby. Tai Long laying on the ground next to her, the tiger stretched out and gave a big yawn. Well, if you insist, Tai, I am sure we can go get some dango. The tiger looked at her for a few moments before doing an action that looked like shaking its head and following after the purplete, making sure to keep her out of trouble. Anbu years. As the title suggests, this will be a little section at the end of the chapters for some time, showing snippets of what Naruto got up to during his Anbu years. I hope you enjoy. A groan slipped from the young boy's mouth. Having been accepted into the Anbu at the age of 8, he was definitely the youngest recruit. He was currently wearing a tracksuit while his face was covered by a plain white mask. A katana tanto sitting in the middle of his back as he slowly pulled himself up from the ground and faced down at the Oni masked Anbu before him. He raised his hand up to the tanto and clenched it tightly, feeling the spark of life as he called it resounding within the blade and his body, melding them together to work as a perfect instrument. He clashed his tanto against the karma the Oni held in reverse grip. The older male quickly knocking Naruto off to the side, only for it to fade away as it hit the ground. A genjutsu, but I wonder what part of it was, our clash or you vanishing. Was I fighting the real you or a clone? The man mused, bringing his karma behind him and blocking the tanto strike from Naruto. You hold too much emotion in your movements. I could feel your ki giving away your position, Gaki. Naruto smirked right before he blew up in the anbu's face, sending him back a few feet with a crack running down his mask. The man quickly waved a hand over the crack and Naruto saw the mask repair itself. The Oni shall not show its face until it makes its final move. He tilted his head to the side and Naruto felt a strange sensation just below his ribs. He moved his hand to the area. Damp. He muttered himself, bringing his hand up he wiped it across his once porcelain white mask, leaving 4 long red lines running across it. He put his hand back to where the wound was and found the kunai, removing it and tossing it to the ground as his hand glowed red for a moment, slamming it into the wound. Oni had to watch as the boy burnt the gaping hole closed. With the wound now closed, Naruto painfully strode forward attempting to strike the man. Oni sidestepped the first strike, causing Naruto to smirk beneath his mask as he swiped out with his blood-covered hands, spraying the liquid over the man's eye holes. The black-haired child pivoted on his feet and brought the tanto back around, stopping it just as it nicked the man's skin, feeling a kunai pressed up against his throat. "You are a real demon, my boy. Welcome to Anbu." Oni removed the kunai from Naruto's throat, and the boy dropped to his knees, still holding his own blade in place, panting heavily before letting it fall to the ground beside him. He felt his mask being moved from his face, but he was simply too exhausted to do anything about it. Moments later, another was placed on his face. "From this moment on, you shall be Oni." Naruto strained his body to nod at what the man said before everything faded to black. Naruto groaned as he flopped down onto his bed. He was beyond exhausted, having just finished reporting in to the Hokage after finishing his latest mission. He stretched out as he yawned, his hands traced along something frilly. His crimson eyes snapping open and looking at what he had felt. A black frilly thong was laying on his bed next to a pair of jeans, a bra and a tight top. "These aren't mine?" He looked at the garments with an aura of confusion surrounding him. He doubted that they were Anko's. She knew his room was off limits. During this time he hadn't noticed that the shower was running, that was until it stopped. The soft pitter-patter of water hitting the ground as someone stepped onto the tiles in his end squeaked. He heard the door slowly open and turned to see who it was. His crimson eyes burning what he saw into his mind as she stood there frozen, a towel currently covering her eyes. Naruto, showing just how much he knew what to do in this situation, looked dumbly at her. "What are you doing in my room?" Her body froze, her hands still in the towel wrapped around her hair cover her eyes. "And Naruto?" It was very quiet in the room. Kurenai could not think of anything more awkward right now. It seems as if Kami was testing her though. "Hey Kurenai, are you? Oh hi Naruto, I didn't know you would be home so soon." Naruto turned his eyes to Anko, who stood in the door frame connecting his room to the rest of the house. "You didn't get my message then?" From the corner of his eyes he saw Kurenai tighten her grip on the towel. Anko shook her head. "I guess it was an accident then. Well, I will leave you to get changed." He pushed himself from the bed and took a slow step forward, stopping right next to Anko's ear, leaning in and whispering into her ear. "You shouldn't lie, Gaki, it's unbecoming." Anko stiffened as he walked past, closing the door behind him. The small gust of wind that was created from the action causing the towel covering Kurenai's body to fall from her frame. Slowly removing the towel from her head, you could see that her cheeks had become the same color as her eyes. Said eyes were wide and filled with horror. Well, at least he wasn't in the room when that happened. Anko pointed to the glistening naked body of Kurenai, who nodded dumbly. "So I have been sleeping in his bed for the past week, correct?" Anko nodded her head thoughtfully, hiding the smile that wanted to burst free. "And my apartment is still being repaired, correct?" Once again Anko nodded. "So what am I to do?" Anko took her thinking position. It was not needed though, she had already thought of this from the moment she read Naruto's letter, saying he would be home today. A smirk started spreading across her face, slowly walking towards the door and poking her head out, seeing Naruto pawing at Tai Lung, who wanted to be left alone. "Hey Naruto?" The man and Tiger tilted their head to the side comically. "Yes?" "I was wondering if Kurenai could stay tonight. Her apartment is undergoing repairs after a small fire." Anko had an innocent look on her face, while Naruto looked at her with confusion on his face. "Of course, you need not ask." Kurenai burst through the door, causing Anko to gasp and Naruto to freeze. "Are you sure I wouldn't be imposing?" "Akure-chan?" "Why yeah, Anko? You are kind of naked in front of Naruto." An eep was heard and the raven-haired beauty vanished. Well, that was strange. Naruto nodded at Anko, his Sharingan blazing. That creamy white skin would forever be burned into his memory. Naruto frowned as he looked at the girl he saw as a sister of some sort. He started before taking a deep breath. "You shouldn't get involved too much. I like you guys, but I don't think you can beat my curse." He frowned deeper and stroked Tai. The tiger seemed to growl a little. "Stupid ninjen." Naruto slowly moved his hand away from the tiger as it spoke. "I didn't say stop, I just called you stupid." Anko's sweat dropped. A talking tiger was laying in their living room. "I agree with him to a point, Anko-san. Do not push a Uchiha." "So you weren't what you appeared to be." Naruto mused out loud at Tai. And you are? The large tiger bit back. Touché. Anko looked between the two as they started at one another, golden eyes bouncing off burning red. I must ask, why are you here, Tai Long? The tiger grumbled at the question before standing and stretching its back out. Funny you actually managed to guess my real name. Nonetheless, I am here under orders. Seems even hidden away. You have caught the eyes of some interesting people. I am here because of their interest in you. Naruto brought a hand up and rested it against his seal. It was burning. Being hidden away from the world, it is something that is hard to explain, until you are in the position, isn't that right, Naruto? He shot the tiger a look that silenced him. Naruto? I am fine, Anko. Tai Long has just made a mistake. He assumed something that was not true. She nodded hesitantly, slowly leaving the room. Once out of earshot, Naruto looked down at his hands. The world is locked away from me to protect them. So immersed in what he had said, he failed to notice the door to his bedroom slowly close. Dinner was in one word, quiet. No one really knew what to say. What was there to say anyway? Sorry? Oops. Naruto was putting the final piece of meat from his plate into his mouth, when a knock sounded at his door. He excused himself and went to answer. His father, rounded by 4 anbu, walked in. Naruto, I have something to tell you. Naruto nodded hesitantly. After your last medical report, you are relieved of duty until further notice. I am sorry, but it is for your health. The black-haired man nodded dumbly as he looked at his hands. Are you not going to say something? Naruto just shook his head. What is there to say, father? Minato grimaced and apologized again as he left, causing Naruto to wave it off. It is how it was meant to be. Little did he know that those parting words would haunt his father for years to come. Naruto, are you okay? Anko's quiet voice broke the silence that had come to pass since Minato's departure. With a sad smile, Naruto turned to her, his Sharingan turned off and his patterned golden eyes boring across the table. As I said, it is how it was meant to be. I shall be Funagaki. Anko groaned while Naruto left the room, coming back with a blanket and pillow and putting himself on the couch. Please do not be up too much longer. I still have some things to do tomorrow. He sounded so defeated. Kurenai felt her heart quake at his words. Tai Long put himself to bed a few feet away from Naruto, his head down and eyes closed, as he listened to the world around him. Naruto, you don't have to move out of your bed for me. She tried to reason. Kurenai, there are many things I am not. Chivalrous is not one of those. Then share it with me. She stuttered out, causing Anko's eyes to go wide while Naruto looked confused. Is that okay? Kurenai looked at Anko for a few moments, who was actually too shocked to react before giving a shy nod to the man. I shall see you when you come to bed then. The way he said that made her heart flutter. Sharing a bed with Naruto, thoughts flew through her mind so fast that she could barely see them before she was assaulted by a new one. She saw him stand and leave the room, wanting nothing more than to chase after him. Anko now collected her thoughts and looked at the blushing Kurenai before winking, moving to the door as Iruka would be coming around soon. Be careful with him, yeah? I don't want you wearing him out on the first night. Kurenai was now eligible to be called the Scarlet Princess. You do know he can more than likely hear us, right? Anko shrugged her shoulders. He already knows how I am, Kurenai. He accepted me before even you. You are the one that has something to prove. There was a knocking at the door and Anko turned on her feet, opening it for Iruka, embracing him in a hug. Something to prove, Kurenai thought. Anko, thank you? The purplet looked back at the Raven Beauty and gave a smirk. Anything for you too. Kurenai shuffled into the bedroom. Naruto was still up, his Sharingan eyes blazing as he read over a scroll. Taking a peek, she saw it was focused around ceiling, not exactly her area, but even she could tell he was looking across high-level things, making small notes as he went along. A small book was brought out quickly, a strange symbol printed on its front. Naruto flicked through the pages like a madman, trying to find what he was looking for. Finally finding it, he exclaimed and put the book up near the scroll. Kinshur Ser Tatoshi. Forbidden City, he mumbled out, drawing a quick pattern on a spare piece of paper. Naruto smirked and Kurenai felt herself become warm. Even though it wasn't directed at her, his expression seemed to change the atmosphere of the room. Can we talk for a bit before we sleep? I want to know you a little better. He rose a brow and slowly turned to her, his eyes flicking back to their golden form for a moment. He rolled up the scroll and packed away his book. He frowned and laid down, facing the ceiling as Kurenai stripped out of her jeans and jumped into bed. What do you want to know? She paused, hadn't thinking she would get this far. She needed something, anything right now. What's with your eyes? Wanting to slap herself, she let out a large sigh. You don't have to answer that. She saw a small shrug from the black-haired man. My golden eyes, well, I got them when I obtained my stage 3 lightning affinity. She gasped as he remained quiet. Getting to stage 2 in an affinity was easy enough. Stage 3, well, you had best be prepared to enjoy a stay in the hospital, at best. My instructor put me out in the field during a thunderstorm, explained what was going to happen, then left. I was alone, completely, no orders, no rules, just knowing what was to come. It was a new experience, something that shook me completely. He took a deep breath, watching as Kurenai listened intently to his every word. I became a lightning rod. For 5 minutes I became my own person, lightning flowing through my veins. I felt reborn. The experience ended too quickly for my liking. My instructor, surprised that I lived, slapped this seal around my eye. Father said my eyes used to be so full of hope. After that moment I became a savage, living on a chain, being unleashed in a direction the village didn't want to see again. He paused, pulling his hair up to show the seal around his eye. Kurenai took careful notice. It looked like the one he had just been studying. What does it do? He stiffened for a moment, looking at her with his red eyes. Long story short, it's a leash. He frowned and rolled over, turning the lights out. It was clear he no longer wanted to talk. Respecting his wishes, she rested her hands on her stomach, the ever-tempting smell of belladonna reaching her nose. Things finally started to click for her, noticing that she was in fact in the same bed as her crush, inside his room, within cuddling range. She attempted to move forward, but a growl from the foot of the bed froze her. Sorry, I thought I saw something that I shouldn't. Tai Long held firm in his belief, do not push a Uchiha. Flashback. Naruto stood in the middle of the kitchen, his hands behind his back as his flak jacket stood out proud. His father was proud. At the age of 6 his son was Chunin. It was something unheard of. His golden eyes shone as he looked at the person standing in front of him. She was physically beautiful, physically. He was sent down to the ground, his cheeks stung, an emotionless mask in place. He stood back up, standing just as he did before. This proves it, you really do take after your mother. As much as he wanted to, Naruto could not strike out. Naruto was brought to his knees in pain, trying his best to steal his emotions. My seal won't be broken, remember this. I will not let you bring any harm to my daughter. A small bump was on the redhead's stomach. She rubbed it tenderly. I will keep you away from her. Naruto frowned, causing the woman to smile, finally breaking through his mask. You are not my real mother, you will always be father's second choice. His words struck her cold, his footsteps echoing as he moved to the door only to collapse in pain. I am no one's second choice. Your father loved me first. Your whore of a mother used her Sharingan on him. Fighting through the pain, Naruto slowly stood, his golden eyes slowly turning to their red with 3 tome in each. He channeled the chakra needed to his eyes for the genjutsu, only for his seal to activate again. Funny, really, you care so much about your sister that you can't harm me. She snorted. Let me fix that. Intensifying the pain that racked his body, she brought out a sealing kit. A few brush strokes later she moved away. Everything you love, of non-Uzumaki decent, shall die by your hand. This is my curse to you, Uchiha. She spat his clan name out, like it was mud. It's funny you, the Red Death, is scared of a child. How the mighty have fallen. If my mother could see you now, I bet she would be laughing, you taking what was hers only after she died. Pathetic, just like a Uzumaki, you hide behind paper and ink claiming to be better. The reality is, everyone knows your clan is scared to fight. Scared to get their hands dirty doing real shinobi work. You are like your clan, pathetic and scared. He breathed out as his seal pushed him lower to the ground, making him almost bow to her. I thought Uchiha were meant to be smart. Why do you keep fighting even though you have lost? Naruto slowly smirked. You don't even know your own husband, is he just some meal ticket to you? Father never gives up, no matter how bad things may look, he always finds a way, always. He repeated. A foot came down on his head, pushing it roughly against the ground. Then why is your mother still dead? Hate me if you want, this is the first real encounter of the two. More will be explained in further flashbacks. Present. Naruto harshly awoke. He hated that dream, his hand instantly going to his seal. That was the day he lost his normal vision. Without the Sharingan he would be almost blind. The feedback from the genjutsu crashing against the muscles in his eyes, it was simply too much. He burned them out. Now he could see outlines of people and their chakra levels, that was it. His Sharingan became sharper. It seemed the chakra feedback had evolved them somehow. They required almost none to be kept on. It came as both a blessing and a curse. Chose a life of darkness, or a life you can never forget. Everything he saw with his Sharingan was burned into his mind. This was the reason why he could not look at the beauty in his bed. Every time he did, he could see her creamy white skin, subtle droplets running down her legs while her hair framed her beautiful face. Threads of chakra flew around the room as Naruto scribbled in a note. It took him less than 15 minutes to get ready, including his shower and morning coffee. His grandfather's armor on, he strode out of his home, Tai Long following his trail. His golden eyes taking in the sketchy scenery around him, small traces of chakra hanging in the air, residue, such a waste. What are we doing today, Naruto? The raven-haired man thought about it for a few moments. What could he do? He froze in his step. Something I should have done so long ago. Tai tilted his head to the side, following Naruto nonetheless. Anko woke not too much longer after Naruto did. Walking quietly through the house, she made it to his room, gently opening his door so as to not disturb them. You really are scared of letting her in. He was gone. Not surprising really, she felt sorry for Kurenai. Her friend really had picked the hardest person to get close to. You know, Naruto hates people using his things, maybe you do have a chance. Anko turned on her feet and walked out the door, closing it behind her. Thank you, Anko. She immersed herself deeper into his sheets, taking in his scent. She heard the crumbling of paper, groggily opening her eyes and looking at the note. Kurenai, I am sorry, last night I guess what I am trying to say is, I find it hard, dealing with and seeing people as humans. Normally they are a target, easy to kill, easy to forget about. When emotions come into play, it changes the field to some landscape I do not understand. Anko once told me, just about everything can be settled over sake. I guess that was me trying to ask if you wanted to get a drink later? Naruto. You don't have to be sorry. She mumbled, looking at the note, a strange symbol in the top corner. Naruto's feet paused. 2 years, it seemed like only yesterday. Tai Long stood next to him, not daring to move forward. Naruto would need his time. Itachi, did we do the right thing? The streets were cold and lifeless, his red eyes taking every detail in. He caused this. He would not forget. The small pitter-patter of children's feet used to be heard. Now there was only a breeze, flicking his hair around in the wind. Tai Long? A small hum was heard from the tiger. Is it evil to kill a corrupt clan for a corrupt village? Am I evil for following orders? Sitting on his hind legs, Tai Long put a paw up against Naruto, causing the man to look down. A evil man will not question what he does. That does not mean you are a good man, but you are not evil. In the larger picture there is no difference between the two. For example, a young girl steals medicine from a store, is she good or bad? Instantly Naruto replied. It is a crime, thus she should be punished. The tiger shrugged its shoulders and led Naruto slightly further into the compound. But what if I was to tell you, it was to save her sick grandmother? What if I told you the store owner was corrupt, charging much more than should be possible? Naruto was about to answer. He paused mid-step and looked at Tai Long. To commit crimes for someone else, is that what it means to care about someone else? Tai tilted his head from side to side, yes and no, but that is not what I was getting at. What you were getting at I cannot answer. I do not feel strongly enough to be able to do something like that. The large white cat nodded his head. At least you are honest. Well, even if you aren't, you think you are. Naruto looked at him for a moment. You were given orders, kill all Uchiha. Yet 3 of you live, why is that? A Fuma shuriken pattern quickly formed in his red eyes. Defensive about that night, are we? I don't even know what to feel, call, or do about what happened. Should I mourn? Should I be happy that I finished the mission? Should I be disgusted for killing my kin? I doubt you would enjoy me calling you kinslayer. The primal growl from Naruto was enough of an answer for the tiger. This is something you will have to deal with, don't you have a promise to keep? Naruto rose a brow and turned to the tiger. He was gone. Am I going insane? People say they can see the dead wandering here. I cannot. What do you think about this area? He turned on his feet, and the small boy gasped. Do you want to grab something to eat? The small raven-haired child eyed him suspiciously. I have failed so far in my promise. I have come to make it up to you. Who are you? Naruto smirked, showing his red eyes to the child. My name is Uchiha Naruto. I knew your mother, as she helped me a lot. I guess I just wanted to help her out in some way. Sasuke was transfixed on the man before him. I have heard of you. Itachi spoke of you a few times, said you were like a beast, holding the world in its jaw, confused on whether to cherish it or destroy it. Naruto picked up on the way he spoke of Itachi. It seemed the boy had a strong hatred for him. That was something he would have to work on. I gave your brother a choice. I will give you the same. Sasuke looked like he was ready to turn him down right away. He bit down on his anger and nodded slowly to the man. Would you like to learn from me? When we have free time, of course? Sasuke rose a brow. What can you do? Naruto smirked. Sasuke lay panting on the ground, looking up at the man before him. Not a single speck of dirt lay on his red armor. I have one condition. Sasuke huffed and nodded, too tired to do anything else. Use what I teach you, to protect, not for revenge. Anger flickered through Sasuke's eyes and Naruto pinned him down without any effort. Look what that path did to your brother. Forgive me, Itachi. Naruto lied to the boy's face, his eyes widening. I will not become my brother. Naruto moved off of him, extending a hand out and helping the boy up from the ground. Good, meet me at the gates to training ground 44, tomorrow after class. The boy nodded and Naruto put an awkward hand on top of Sasuke's head. Both pivoted and left, not speaking another word, Naruto leaving feeling better than he had in a long time, while Sasuke had been left with a lot to think about. Kurenai walked across the ground, not even the grass talked of her passing. Her kunai held in reverse grip, placing it against the back of his neck. You failed. His voice sounded out, shocking her. Spinning on her feet, she saw him sitting on a patch of grass. She walked right by. No, she moved around that patch of grass. She could see the marks of her feet. They curved around where he sat. I felt like I was walking in a straight line. Naruto, with his eyes closed, smirked. Try again. Kurenai watched him closely, taking her steps slowly, trying her best to stay straight. She stopped in front of him, turning around slowly and seeing the curved path. Genjutsu, making someone believe what is not really there. I won't cast the second part of it. Try again. Kurenai nodded and moved back to where she had stood earlier. You haven't eaten yet, right? Why would that matter? Naruto had still to open his eyes. He looked to be meditating. She knew he was doing something. Just what was it? You will see in a moment. She went to take a step but fell to her knees. The world was spinning. Smells like pancakes. Kurenai looked up and tried to glare, quickly putting her head down. She felt sick. When you can beat this technique, or figure out how it works, I will help you design a new genjutsu. She looked at him in shock, completely forgetting about what happened last time. Can you turn it off? It is, your body will just take time to readjust. Naruto wondered if she would pull anything from that hint. He moved to help Kurenai, stretching his arm out to comfort her. A burning sensation dug in around his left eye. He slowly retracted his arm. Kushina. He snarled, causing Kurenai to look up at him. Naruto? The worry in her voice, it pained him. Sorry, it was nothing. I shall wait for you to recover. He sat down in the grass, closing his eyes. Everything you love shall die by your hand. Naruto looked to be off in his own world. Kurenai reached forward slowly. His hand quickly shot up and clutched tight around her wrist. His eyes suddenly went wide and he let go. Sorry. You say sorry too much. He looked up and met her ruby-red eyes, unable to draw himself away. Thankfully he didn't have to. She hadn't fully recovered yet. Flashback. Itachi was on the ground, a pool of his own vomit around him. He wiped his mouth with his sleeve, looking up and meeting the gaze of his veteran partner. That is what I was feeling. Naruto nodded to the boy. I think I have it. Naruto looked down at the boy, curious. It's the power of suggestion. I know its weakness, even if I am wrong about what it does. Naruto rose a brow. You can't move while using it. A small smirk formed across his face. I don't have to. Itachi looked down. The vomit around him was gone. Before him sat Naruto with a kunai resting against his throat. I can make you come to me, without you even noticing. Naruto smiled. It was a normal enough smile, but it shook Itachi to the core. He was nothing before this man. Why was he called a prodigy? He gulped nervously as the kunai was still in place, not moving a millimeter. Did you enjoy Kami's voice? Itachi froze in place as more and more Narutos started appearing around him, each holding an Itachi at knife point. Answer me this, Itachi. If you think you are here, where are you really? The boy looked around. It was scary, not knowing if he was in fact him, or what Naruto just wanted him to think was him. This genjutsu is confusing. The teen stated, causing Naruto to chuckle as he pulled the kunai away. Flashback end. Uchiha-sama. Naruto groaned. It seemed that Asuma was more than happy to spread around the word that he was the previous anbu commander. He nodded as the anbu looked at him from a kneeling position. Kurenai was able to stand, barely, but she was able to stand. What would you ask of me? He groaned out. His eyes widened a tinge. He knew this anbu. How could he forget that purple hair? Hokage-sama needs you right away. Naruto stood and looked over to Kurenai. Nico, can you please watch over Kurenai until she is okay? I showed her Kami's voice. Nico flinched but nodded quickly. You didn't give her the same test you did us, right? Naruto smirked and vanished in black flames. What did he do to you guys? The purple-haired anbu laughed nervously. It ended with us all pointing swords at one another, thinking it was him. He was happily sitting upside down on the roof, watching. That was a tale in chakra control and capacity. Having a room full of anbu at his whim, what a scary thought. Naruto appeared in his father's office. Instantly he wanted to go back home. Uzumaki-san, Hokage-sama. He bowed politely. You called him. Kushina spat, causing Minato to frown. Give me the name of someone more qualified. I will happily go get them myself. She looked between Minato and Naruto. Yes, he knew he would definitely be sleeping on the couch for some time. There is only one reason you would have me called here with Natsumi present. Minato nodded, confirming his suspicion. Are you sure you want to do this? Better question, have you asked Natsumi if she wants to do this? A blonde girl slowly walked out from behind Kushina. Naruto crouched down to her level, showing her his golden eyes. Will this keep the demon away? Naruto flinched at her wording and looked over to Kushina, who was smirking. I cannot make him go away, but I can show him that you are the boss. He cracked a small smile. Her chakra was so bright and happy. Looking at himself, he was a raging hurricane of emotions. I accept then, do what you must. Naruto nodded. Keep that up and he won't have a chance. She shone a bright smile at this friendly stranger. Father, I am ready, rest your hand on my back, you are coming with me. Minato nodded and formed the ram's seal, placing his free hand on his son's back as he sat down. Natsumi picked up on what he said. Father? Naruto looked at her strangely for a moment. It does not matter at the moment. Please sit down. The girl quickly responded and sat crossing her legs and resting her hands in her lap. Now look into my eyes, this will sting a little. She nodded as Naruto put his right hand on her forehead, his eyes flashing red, 3 worlds going black. Naruto knew this place all too well. He was the first to recover and helped the other 2 up. Both panting heavily, Naruto turned to face the small blonde. Welcome to your mind. She looked at him for a few moments, nodded her head slowly. Honestly, she had no clue what was going on. This feels strange. The comment made Naruto laugh. So it should, this is not your head, the only reason I am used to it as well, you will find out soon enough anyway. Minato nodded as did Natsumi, following the black-haired man as he trudged through the sewer. You! The fox screamed as Naruto came into its vision. Are you going to be stubborn, or will you be a good fox, and listen to what I have to say? He heard the snarling behind the cage and walked through the bars, both Natsumi and Minato telling him to stop. The large beast raised its claw to strike Naruto down. He frowned and rose his hand before vanishing and appearing on the fox's head, slamming the hand down, lighting shocking the fox, causing it to growl. Stop being a pain, for a demon lord, your behavior is unbecoming. The fox started to thrash around and Naruto shocked it again. Is this how you dealt with me the first time? Naruto shook his head at the fox's question. I used my eyes to trick it into giving me its chakra, forcing it to kill itself. Now will you listen to what I have to say? The fox stopped moving and glared at Naruto. Kurama. Naruto smirked at the shocked look on his face. I am going to get off of your head. When I do, we will talk. If you try to attack me, I will trap you in a hell you cannot escape from. Natsumi and Minato watched shocked as Naruto flipped off the fox's head, landing softly on the ground, the great beast lowering itself to his level. We are the same. The fox snorted until Naruto lifted up his left bang. A gift from my stepmother, I love it so much I take it everywhere I go. I don't need your sarcasm. The fox spoke half-heartedly. Honestly, it was good to talk to someone, even if they were an Uchiha. Having the world locked away from us. Anyway, I will make this quick. Natsumi is the boss. If you behave, I will teach her a way to let you roam around in the world in a civilian body. The fox was about to roar at Naruto. There are 2 other ways I can do this, either are pleasant. Do you want to accept the one that will give you freedom if you behave? Pushy Nigen. If the blonde is anything like you, I will accept. Naruto smirked a little. I don't know if she is like me, this is my first time meeting her, but do anything that will harm my little sister, you will be begging that death will claim you. Naruto's voice was cold enough to cut through steel. The fox narrowed his eyes but saw Naruto change his. Madara, that old man had a kid? A daughter, I am her son. The fox raised a brow. Naruto opened the locket around his neck and showed the fox. Sorry for your loss. And I yours, I am here if you need to talk. Kurama nodded. It was strange, talking to someone who knew everything about you. Natsumi, father, you can come here if you wish. Naruto saw the heated glare Kurama put on as he saw the man who put him there. Natsumi bowed to the fox as did Minato. Naruto found this incredibly odd. Q. Can I get a new Ningen? Kurama looked to Naruto for his answer. The raven-haired man stifled a laugh while little Natsumi was trying her best not to blow up. You heard your brother, my name is Kurama. Natsumi gave a light glare but nodded. Kurama, I look forward to working with you. The large fox rose a brow at Naruto, said man shrugged. Do you want me to establish a link so you two can talk, or do you have that ready to go already, Kurama? QB snorted and rolled his eyes. You have a better temper than my half did. Also, before we go, there is something I need to show you all. The group nodded as Naruto lifted up his left bang, showing the seal around his eye to all. Natsumi, thinking it was a tattoo, complimented him on how cool it looked. The entire room dropped in temperature. It was not from Naruto though. No, Kurama was angry. That is not cool, Ningen, that is a leash, a brand. It is used to force you under someone's will. Do not ever say such disgusting things in front of me again. Kurama bellowed. The waters around them had vanished from the force in his voice. Naruto, is this what I think it is? Naruto nodded grimly at his father. What is it? Natsumi-chan, that is a Uzumaki seal. Anbu years. Naruto panted on the ground. His mask, while he treasured it, was currently in the way. Pulling it off to the side, he emptied his stomach. A firm hand patted him on the back. Well done, Oni, you killed the traitor. Why don't I feel like I did good then? Naruto wiped his mouth and caught a bottle that was thrown towards him, twisting its lid and washing his face and mouth. This is what a stage 3 right-un can do to a body. Naruto nodded weakly, still trying to catch his breath. I can't imagine it was a peaceful way to go. Ain't no need to worry about that, is there, Oni? Rat was a rat, he was not worthy to enter our den, Snake. The man chuckled behind his snake mask. Ah, that he was he tasty, Oni? This man bugged Naruto, but he was the veteran in their partnership. A rat cannot provide a fitting meal, even if I am only a small Oni. He gave a sadistic grin to his partner, causing him to gasp. Oni, you have bits of rib cage in your mouth. Naruto panicked and quickly tried to wash it out, only stopping when he saw Snake holding his sides. Sorry, it was your hair, not mouth. Naruto groaned as he picked himself up and shakily stood to his feet. He didn't stay standing long. He was quickly thrown over the shoulder of Snake. Said man chucked the Oni mask back over Naruto's face and headed back to HQ. People cleared a path for the pair. Their job was well known. It was surprising Naruto was chosen at such a young age. Only 10 and already an executor. An executor, in a few words, is an anbu who is trained to kill anbu. When the old Oni vanished after passing Naruto, Snake quickly snapped the boy up, holding him close ever since. It was not just anbu they hunted, no, from the top right down to civilians. If they needed to be killed to protect the hidden leaf, an executor was already watching them. Do you find it strange, Oni? Naruto grunted at the man's question. I suppose you are right, they should sell pizza on Thursday. Sometimes I wonder if you act that way to bug me. Snake put Naruto down on the ground and patted his head. Does it work? Not nearly as well as it should. Snake chuckled at Naruto's comment. What am I going to do with you, Oni? Disclaimer, I do not own Naruto. Did Kushina do this? Minato's voice was like steel, cutting through the air of depression and shock that surrounded the group. Naruto nodded weakly and dropped his bang, falling to his knees shortly after. Gah, the time delay was not as long as I suspected. He coughed into his hand, wiping the blood that covered it away on his pants. Blood started to trickle from his mouth. He turned his head to the side and smiled at his father. I can get you both out, but I don't know how long I will last once I come out. Cough. I just thought you could do with knowing cough. After all, it's my job to protect the village from any threat. Minato placed a hand on his son's shoulder. I will fix this up, just get me out of here, okay? Also, good job, Naruto. Naruto struggled to nod as Minato felt the tug on his body, sending him back to his office. He didn't give himself a moment to recover, instantly zipping across the room and slamming his wife into the wall. Remove it. His hair shadowing his face. But she tried to stammer out, only to be roughly slammed against the wall again. That's my son there, Kushina. Remove the fucking seal. His head snapped up, showing the untamable anger in his eyes. A defeated look came across her face. She pushed him away. I did everything for you and Natsumi. I just want you to know this. She stumbled over to the form of Naruto, seeing a sight that chilled her to the core. See, come on, mister, don't you go dying on me. Naruto was in the hands of her daughter. She kept talking to him, trying to keep him awake as he bled. Kushina tightened her fists and looked back at her husband. The betrayed look on his face hurt her more than anything right now. She fiddled around in her pouch, drawing a kunai. She was forced to pause as 4 anbu were at her throat, blades drawn and poised to strike. If you don't let me do this, he will die. She spat out, raising the kunai and slicing her hand open, drawing it over the seal and watching her blood splatter again his face. She tossed the kunai aside and quickly traced the seal around his eye in her blood. Taking a deep sigh, she brought her hands up to form the ram seal. Kai. The blood started to evaporate, taking the seal along with it. I did it for both of you. Her head hung low. There was a small thud followed by a slap. Kushina stumbled back, raising her eyes just enough to see her daughter shaking. I didn't want this. You hiding my brother, caging him like an animal. What kind of parent would do those things? Natsumi tightened her fists, moving forward to strike her mother, a large hand softly covering her delicate ones, pausing her in her stride. As she did it to protect CTU, don't hate your mother. Why you don't know how lucky you are. His hand slowly fell away. A blur of yellow flew across the room, quickly scooping up his son and vanishing in a golden light. Natsumi-chan, I was trying to protect you. He is my brother. Kushina flinched at the anger in her daughter's voice. What you did is wrong. I can't hate you, but I don't know if I will ever look past this. Natsumi walked from the room, leaving her spluttering mother behind her. Yuga was frozen. Kurinai was kneeling on the ground in shock. Kurinai had just overheard information she assumed was meant to be for anbu only. How could this happen? The Nico masked woman chalked out. She couldn't fathom the thought of something like this happening. It was placed on him before he became a Chunin. It was meant to activate as soon as Hokage-sama saw it. Yugao flinched. He was a Chunin at 6. How could someone do that to a child? How is he? The anbu across from her stiffened in his place. Naruto-sama, he is in a bad shape. It isn't getting worse, but it isn't getting better either. His body will burn out if he keeps trying to hold his condition still though. The telltale signs of a shunshin were heard and Kurenai was gone. Thank you, this is a lot to ask, but can you find Anko and inform her? Mitarashi Anko was just sent on a mission with a group of anbu by Hokage-sama. Yugao frowned beneath her mask. I guess you must already know then. Thank you, Snake. I know how you felt towards him. She mumbled, clutching her arms tightly. It is not a problem. Naruto showed me how to become better than what I was. My loyalty to him is second only to the Hokage. The man snapped to attention. Sometimes I wonder about that Snake. The rubbed his head under the accusing eye of Yugao. Old habits die hard. You two still feel like following his every order, don't you? She stiffened in place, giving Snake the answer he needed. Snake turned on his feet and vanished, leaving Yugao standing in her place. Naruto-sama, what would I be if it weren't for you? She mused, looking up into the sky. She remembered seeing how Kurenai acted towards him and frowned. I do not believe she is worth your time. Kurenai stood in the waiting area of Konoha's hospital, her fists clenched and indented in the desk. Kurenai, you are making an awful noise down here, a sleepy blonde-headed man said as he leaned against the wall, resting his pounding head. Gomen Hokage-sama, I didn't see you there. He waved his hand dismissively, slowly pushing himself from the wall. If I was to order you to kill my son, could you do it? He saw the raven-haired beauty that was found of his son stiffen and turn into a stumbling mess. I don't know, Hokage-sama. Minato smirked where he stood, causing her to become confused. Tonight I realized something. I failed my son as a father. I want to believe that I tonight took the first steps to righting what I did wrong. Sadly, it never should have happened in the first place. I don't know if he will ever forgive me. Part of me hopes he doesn't. I don't want you to make the same mistake, okay? She nodded dumbly at him, causing his smile to widen as he moved forward, putting a hand on her head. That's an order. Now come with me. I assume you are here to see him? Ahai, Hokage-sama. She gave a quick bow, then let herself be escorted into his room. She felt a pair of eyes boring into her as she walked alongside the Hokage. It made her feel on edge. Minato braced his hand against the door. I will just warn you, he has seen better days. Kurenai gulped and took a deep breath. Giving a small nod, Minato slid the door open. The sounds of machines working hard filled the air. The room was littered with anbu. Four were standing right behind the doctors as they worked. Sweat was running onto their brows. Whether it was from working hard or being under so much pressure remained to be decided. His hair was not shiny like normal. No, it looked to be dry and sick, just like the person it belonged to. His body was wrapped in bandages, a machine over his mouth to help him breathe as his eyes stayed shut. She tried to think of it like a training exercise. He would open them soon and tell her she failed, dispelling any illusion she had in place. She started pleading inside, begging them to open. He has seen better days, hasn't he? The voice shocked those in the room, looking around as Tai Long came into view, stepping out of the air itself. The anbu moved to attack. Stop! They paused and tilted their head towards Kurenai. Even Minato was now looking at her. He has been living with Naruto for some time now. He is like a companion of sorts. She felt nervous under their gaze. I am sorry, but you will be kept under tight surveillance, mister? Minato spoke to the tiger. It was a little stranger than talking to toads. Tai Long, just call me Tai. So, his cage was removed, I take it? Minato looked at the cryptic tiger, giving an uneasy nod. The seal had already started to destroy his body. He knew we didn't have the medics to fix him, so he froze his body in a death-like state. The machines are barely keeping him alive, while the only person I trust to heal him is being hunted down. Minato clenched his fists as he talked. I have done everything I can, yet his life hangs in the hands of another. Kurenai flinched at the tone in his voice. The description of Naruto's condition didn't help at all. The sounds of things being tipped over was heard from through the door. Minato turned on his feet, sliding it open. A pissed-off anbu member was knelt down with a blade at Kushina's throat. Hokage-sama, she was disturbing the patients. The anbu spoke without even turning around. I assume Natsumi isn't too far then? His response was the anbu raising her arm and pointing just to her left where his blonde daughter stood, barely needing to be restrained at all, standing calmly with two anbu hands rested on her shoulders. Nico, bring them in. Kushina deserves to see what she has done. The cat-masked anbu growled but picked the redhead up none too gently and dragged her into the room, forcing her to stare at the unmoving body. Every head in the room turned to look at her, the anbu restraining themselves from lashing out. Out of everything he has been through, his stepmother, someone who is meant to look out for him, was able to do the most damage. If we hadn't been ordered to let you live, I would have killed you, Aurea. Nico, that is quite enough. As I said, Naruto will decide her punishment. The anbu shivered some, even feeling a small amount of pity for the redhead. Kurenai stood directly in front of Kushina, shaking, her beautiful hair shadowing her eyes. What kind of monster are you? She got out as a whisper. With the silence in the room, it was as clear as day. He tries his best. He works harder than anyone I have seen. Even when he was relieved of duty, he still helped train those below him. He took Enko and myself in when we had nowhere to go. There is not a bad bone in his body. So, please tell me why you did this? Kurenai pleaded with tears in her eyes as she looked up. Kushina stuck her head up and looked for words. I did it to protect my family. He is your family. Kurenai shot back, having had enough, and actually landed a fist into her stomach, doubling the Uzumaki clan head over. Kurenai, enough. Came Minato's cold voice. Everyone that is not stationed here leave. This room is off limits until further notice. Natsumi shook her head as she moved forward, slowly taking up Naruto's hand in her own. Rest up, Oniai-chan. I want to hear about your adventures one day. Minato looked down at his daughter and placed a hand on her head. This must be straining for her, so much information being pushed into her in one day. He saw the small tear that ran down her face as she slowly let go. I will see you soon, okay? She gave herself a nod and walked out of the room, everyone else being pushed out after. Minato looked down at the tiger and motioned for him to leave. Not going to happen. Also, Naruto was going to help Uchiha Sasuke train tomorrow. Do you think you can have someone take his place? Tai questioned as he moved around and got himself comfortable on the floor. I will have someone look after Sasuke tomorrow. The large tiger nodded its head before resting it on the top of its paws. Uchiha Sasuke. The raven-haired boy had just walked out of the academy. He was surrounded by 4 anbu. What's going on? The one who spoke, clearly female, took a step forward, approaching the boy. Uchiha Naruto has become incapacitated. He will be unable to train you for some time. Sasuke snorted and tried to walk past. I should have expected something like that. Itachi was right, he is just a beast. He didn't have any time to react as the purple-haired anbu had swept him off of his feet, pinned him to the ground, and now rested a sword right next to his ear. You will do best not to insult our previous commander for something out of his hands. Now, as I was going to say, we offered to take his place, so he held up his end, partially. You will still receive training, but it will be from us 4, not Naruto-sama. She took her knee from his chest and picked him off of the ground, the students around them staring at the anbu, keeping their distance, mostly. Hiya, Nico-chan. Nico turned to meet Natsumi, who had a bright grin on her face. I thought you would be watching over Oniai-chan still. She tilted her head to the side in confusion. I am helping out Naruto-sama by training Uchiha Sasuke. I will be taking a shift guarding him later tonight. Why do you ask? Natsumi leaned forward and eyed the purple-haired anbu. No reason, said a giggling Natsumi as she walked away. Bye, Nico-chan. Yugao looked at the girl. She was very strange, almost as strange as drunk Naruto. A small shiver ran down her spine. That was a bad night to be in Anbu HQ. Nico Taishu, should we have someone check her out? A multitude of thoughts ran through Yugao's head, stopping on the final and most important one. Naruto-sama was protected by at least one squad at any given moment. Naruto-sama, if being protected by Anbu, he will be fine. Saying those words made her feel uneasy. Senju Tsunade, you are to come with us. The blonde Senju looked around at the anbu that had surrounded her, instantly noting that one wasn't an anbu, her purple hair tied back into a ponytail shaped like a pineapple. You would be? She raised an eyebrow while Shizen clutched her pig tightly. Why are from Konoha? Hokage-sama has ordered you to return and heal some injured. Enko stepped forward and got to her knees. Tsunade-sama, we need you to come back, please? The Senju flinched a little, stepping back. I think you lot have some explaining to do, any? 3 more squads of anbu dropped down around her. Or I guess we can walk and talk? Enko nodded her head and stood turning on her feet. This was just in case you didn't come quietly. We need you to heal Uchiha Naruto. Tsunade stopped in her tracks and looked up at the sky. The child of prophecy, huh? That's a pretty tall ask, you know? Enko bobbed her head as she moved. Our medic struck out. He knew they would too, so he put his body in a stasis of sorts until someone would be able to heal him. We hope that someone is you, otherwise we have no clue where to turn to. She raised her arms and shook her head. Pretty much, you're our last hope. Also, just in case you were thinking about running, each anbu with me is an executor, trained by Naruto himself. They all volunteered for this mission. Looking around, Tsunade saw the different types of weapons they all used: sickles, chains, karma. There were a few scythes and even a broadsword or 2. This was definitely not the standard group of anbu. Executors, they weren't around when I left. What do they do? A Hanya-masked anbu moved away and stood next to the Senju woman. We executors, huh? Well, Naruto-sama trained us to hunt down rogue jounin and above. Mostly though, we take on the missions that no one else should have to know about. The Senju was about to snort when she felt 16 different pokes around her body, causing her to flinch. Looking around, it seemed like none of the anbu had moved. I get the point, but if you are so highly ranked, why did Pineapple Head do the talking? Enko looked around at the group and pouted. Because Enko-chan is so cute. The group went quiet. The anbu turned towards a man brandishing a large scythe. Wolf, you are a freak, just be quiet. He ran his hand along where his mouth would sit, showing he zipped them. Forgive him, some of us needed to change, fitting into this life isn't for everyone. Enko looked around to the Hanya woman with question on her face. Did Naruto have to change? The anbu seemed to look around for a few moments before they started laughing. Naruto was born for the job, honey. You should have seen the test he gave the recruits this one time. Yugao shivered as she stood on duty. Something wasn't right in the world. Taicho, are you okay? She tilted her head to the side. I am fine, why? The anbu's mask was blank. She reached for the blade on her back. T-shirt. 3 anbu froze in place. The curtains paused what they were doing and the machines stopped their jobs. The masked figure removed the blank sheet from his face. Scars riddled his face as vicious smirk threatening to break free. His golden eyes shining down as he drew his kunai, holding it against Naruto jugular. Little Oni, let's see what you have been up to in my time away. It was damp and dark. The air was filled with vile chakra. The golden-eyed man strode through the halls of the sewer, stopping as it came to a large room. I thought I felt you out there. The voice came from behind the bars, 2 pairs of crimson eyes looking through at the shadowed man. Said man moved forward towards the bars, a large fox lashing against them. Nigen, why is this trash in our den? I don't know, Kurama, but I think we should trash the fiend. A large white tiger moved forward and stood next to Naruto. Deception, such a wonderful art, isn't it? Naruto snorted at the man, pulling a chair from the ground and sitting down. Why don't you take a seat? It has been such a long time after all. With a flick of his wrist he pulled another chair from the ground. You have gotten better at this, little Oni. Been working hard with your inner demon, I see? The large fox bared its teeth and gave the man a snarl. I see you reached stage 3 as well. Not as much fun as I made it sound, was it? The golden-eyed man chuckled a little. No, it was exactly as you described it. I felt reborn. I even made a genjutsu backfire to see like you. It is interesting, hazing outlines of people, seeing sound and chakra reserves as well as when people expend it. If it could see sense, I would call it the perfect tracking eye. Naruto rose his brows at the man. So now that you have seen the world like I have, what do you think? You take color away, strip everything down to its most basic form, what are you left with? The two looked at each other for some time, seemingly coming to the same answer. Morals and loyalty. The spoke in time, putting the QB on edge slightly. It was scaring to think at what these 2 lightning rods could accomplish. You know, I stood over your bed for a while, wondering if I should kill you or not. 2 occupants narrowed eyes while one raised a brow. Did you come to a decision? Naruto's calm voice spoke, shocking the 2 standing near him. Nope, kind of just stood there. I felt stupid after a little, so I came in here. Naruto frowned. That didn't sound like the man he knew. How does it feel, now that the seal is gone? He got a shrug from the 3 occupants. I don't feel the need to brutally kill the people that live in my house, if that's what you were getting at. The man sitting on the lone side of the bars shook his head. That's not what I was getting at. They removed the leash and shock collar. How does it feel to be free? Naruto widened his eyes at the word, mouthing it a few times just to taste it. That word, it is still out of my reach. I see that you have perfected your time-altering barrier? A small chuckle came from the lone man. I have completed it, not perfected it. Naruto smirked while the fox looked between the 2. Nigen, why tell him your jutsu is not perfect? The lone man gave a bone-chilling smile. Because I know the weakness behind his greatest jutsu. This caused Naruto to laugh from where he sat. I have a rather different skill set now. It would seem that you have walked into a den that you know nothing about, outnumbered, but are you outmatched? Who knows? Will you draw first, or will this be a peaceful conversation? All questions that we should already have the answers to, yet here I sit and ponder. Naruto rested his elbow on his leg, his hand resting steady as his head lay upon it. His eyes closed, and his tilted to the side as a small smile was on his face. You are just as strange as I remember, always thinking things through so much, but never voicing the question you really want to answer. What will happen if? Maybe if you thought about what would happen once you did something, you may not get into such bothersome messes. Naruto frowned, giving his shoulders a light shrug a moment later. I enjoyed being strange, asking the questions that many just guess. It makes your opponent think more, making them more dangerous. It is fun when they fight with their mind. Plus I am going to assume you are already fixing me up? Bailing me out of another bothersome mess, as you would so call it? The tiger lifted its head to see the 2 men in similar stances, quickly dropping it and going back to sleep. Their conversation bored him quite some time ago. I am indeed, kind of makes me shocked that I thought about killing you at the start. It seems rather pointless now that I am healing you. And you call me strange? The house was so quiet, she couldn't bring herself to leave though. No, now it felt like she needed to be here. A deep sigh left her lips as she stood, her black hair shifting with her strides as she moved to the table. her red eyes skimming across the information in front of her. Bad Blood, written by Uchiha Madara, lay in front of her. Flicking through the first few pages of the book as they were about the Senju and Uchiha, she paused looking at the final valley. It was a drawing made from the Uchiha's description, Madara and Hashirama locked in a heated battle. Above them towered the Kyuubi and some strange wooden statue. You two really were in a league of your own. Flicking through the next few pages she stopped as a name jumped out at her. Uzumaki, isn't Kushina-sama a Uzumaki? Reading further down the page she found that the two clans had been fighting for even longer than the Uchiha had with the Senju. The whirlpool's blood can wash away the darkness. That sentence made no sense to her. Flicking through a few more pages she was forced to drop the book, her arms curling around her waist tightly. Diagrams littered the page, showing how to achieve Tier 3 manipulation. All of them were disgustingly brutal. Would Naruto approve of you looking through these books? A calm voice spoke into her ear. She jumped away and hands ran through seals attempting to perform a rush genjutsu. It took its effect, but he merely waved it away. Not bad, still leagues away from being able to hold me in one. The figure moved forward, his hand brushing over the book. Kurenai flung a kunai at him. The masked man caught it by sticking a finger through its loop. Can you please stop that? I am trying to read. He didn't even look up from the pages. Finding what he was looking for, he pulled out a blank scroll and copied it down. He rolled the now filled scroll up and placed it into his pants, his blank mask looking up at Kurenai. He is awake now. What do you mean? This man was different, she couldn't detect anything from him. His body can't be fixed yet. The man chuckled. It was a parting gift. In exchange I got to look over this book again. Thank you for making it easy to find. He vanished, no smoke or anything signaling he left, he was just gone. Grabbing the keys on the counter she locked up the house and bolted across the village. She would check the hospital first, to see if what the man said added up. Entering its doors she saw anbu, doctors and nurses all rushing around. A blur of blonde whipped past her as it moved down the hall to Naruto's room. I told you I am fine. That voice, her face light up as she heard it, running down the hall only to be stopped by a squad of anbu. Why do you keep pestering me? I am fine. Naruto-sama, we must finish running the tests before we clear you. She heard some shuffling around into room, the door sliding open revealing Naruto in a hospital gown. You can finish the tests as I move, I am hungry. A small hand landed on his shoulder causing him to raise a brow. Naruto-sama, please just rest, I will acquire what you wish to eat. His shoulders seemed to slump in defeat. Fine Nico, I would like some barbecue, if they are still open, if not some peanut satay noodles. His head turned down the hall and saw Kurenai standing there. You hungry? She went to shake her head, her stomach sadly beat her to it, and grumbled. Make that for 3, knowing you Nico, you haven't eaten yet either, just let me get my wallet. Naruto walked back into the room, Nico walking out and looking at Kurenai. Wait, that's for, someone forgot to feed Tai. He walked back out and handed over a lump of cash to the cat-faced anbu. Hi Naruto-sama, I will be back soon. Her purple hair swaying along with her hips as she swayed down the hall grabbing the attention of the male anbu. You can let go of Kurenai, like I said I am fine. He waved his hand turning back around and entering his room, taking a seat on his bed again instantly being pestered by his father and the medics. So how long are these tests going to take? Also you sure you aren't hungry Hokage-sama? Minato just let out a sigh. Just call me Minato, it feels strange having you be so respectful to me, I don't exactly deserve it. Naruto just shook his head. You are an excellent shinobi though, that deserves respect, plus you haven't answered my question. Naruto was being prodded by needles and having hands flow over him as the tests were done. They shouldn't take more than 15 minutes, plus I ate at home, and that wasn't what I meant Naruto. The black-haired man just shrugged his shoulders. He looked at Kurenai who was standing there looking out of place. Snake, can you please fetch Kurenai a chair? His question was answered as a chair was unfolded beneath the crimson-eyed beauty. Why are you so quiet? His question was directed at Kurenai. All heads turned to her, and she felt embarrassed at being the center of attention. Well, there was someone strange in your house, I was just thinking about it. Naruto rose a brow. Minato turned to her and looked her straight in the eyes. Was he wearing a blank anbu mask? Kurenai stiffly nodded giving him the answer he had dreaded. See Naruto, he can enter your house at any time. Naruto sighed as he brushed the bang covering his left eye behind his ear, showing his golden eyes to the world. Minato, like I said, I would be dead if he wanted. He caught me out even with the anbu guards. We talked, he healed me and I let him look through one of my books. He saw Kurenai stiffen and chuckled. Did you read Bad Blood, Kurenai? She nodded, worry was on her face. My grandfather and clan had some interesting views on the world. Did you reach the ninjutsu section? He tapped his eyes as he spoke to her, causing her to gasp. Naruto, this is serious. The anbu couldn't stop him tonight. The Uchiha just sighed. He is dangerous, yes, but I am the only one that can fight him, He knows that. That's why he won't attack me when I am not at my best. He shook his head. Plus, he was mostly just here to talk and get some information from my books, he asked, unlike some people. He poked his tongue out at Kurenai, causing her to blush. The rest of the tests were finished and relatively quietly. Only Naruto's stomach dared break the peace, Yugao returning a short time after carrying bags full of noodle box. A small brown bag was placed off to the side. The anbu looked at Naruto for some time. Oh, I almost forgot. He clicked his fingers, casting a genjutsu over her face. To anyone but him it looked like she was still wearing her mask. She pulled it off and placed it to the side, surprising Kurenai. Thank you, Nico. Also, Kurenai, if you try to undo the genjutsu, she is legally allowed to kill you. Kurenai gulped as a box of noodles was dropped into her lap. So how long was I out for? Yugao tilted her head from side to side, slurping up a long stream of noodles, taking a small breath before she talked. 3 days, things were pretty quiet around here, also that Uchiha brat really needs an attitude adjustment. Naruto sighed as he poked around at his noodles, slowly swirling them around his chopsticks, and lifting it up to his mouth, some sauce splashing his face. Yugao giggled as she sat on his bed, wiping it off with a piece of cloth. Kurenai frowned at how close the two looked. I was saving that for later. He crumbled out, causing the girls to chuckle as he pouted. But yeah, I know, Sasuke is going to be a real pain, plus I also have to help Kurenai and Anko train for the Jounin exams. Yugao rose a brow that was hidden from the female sitting on the chair. Yugao, of course seeing it as her right, sat on Naruto's bed with him, her legs crossed with her box of noodles between her legs. You don't have to, Naruto. Kurenai shot out, causing Naruto to raise a brow. I kinda do, I said I would. Everyone knows it is hard for a Uchiha to go back on his or her word. He spoke, raising his hand up like he was taking an oath. No, Naruto-sama, I think that is just you. The rest of your clan, no offense of course, was pretty shady. She pointed her chopsticks at him for emphasis. Maybe. Hey, what's in the bag, Nico? She sighed as she turned around and fetched it. I picked up some Pocky. I know it's meant to be an after-mission thing, but I just felt that it seemed right, now that you are back on your feet and all? Naruto nodded. He seemed okay with the idea while Kurenai looked confused. You like Pocky, Naruto? You didn't know, Kurenai-san? Yugao gasped in shock. Naruto-sama loves Pocky. I still remember when him and Weasel went to a convention about it, claiming it was a super important mission about the security of the village. Naruto smiled sadly, remembering the day him and Itachi started bonding. It was that day he took the Uchiha under his belt. Honestly, in a way it was. Without my Pocky I find it hard to perform at my best. Kurenai and Yugo's minds raced to slightly naughtier thoughts. I will have to remember that, Naruto-sama. The purplet purred, confusing Naruto further. There was a knock at the door, bringing the group out of their conversation as a doctor walked in holding a clipboard. Naruto-sama, you have been cleared to leave. You will return to active duty in 2 weeks to give your body proper time to heal. In the meantime, take it easy with your training. I don't want to see you back in here so quickly. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. As the doctor left, his visage changed, and he became serious. Kurenai, I will be talking to Hokage-sama tomorrow. When Anko gets back, you two will be going through boot camp Naruto style. Yugo paled and patted Kurenai lightly on the shoulder. Good luck, you will need it. Kurenai stiffened at the anbu's touch. Why did they always smell of blood? Naruto was putting his clothes on, a stick of Pocky hanging from his mouth. He was glad someone had washed them. Kurenai had headed back to his, saying she would see him soon, while Yugao stood in the corner waiting for him to finish getting dressed. That was Oni that appeared tonight, wasn't it? She questioned Naruto as he yanked his jeans on, pulled up the fly and did the button, chucking his white shirt over the top as he fiddled with the buttons. Yugao sighed and moved forward, starting to play with the buttons as she slowly did them up, Naruto rolling his sleeves up to put them in a comfortable position. Yes, that was the previous Oni. He frowned, his sleeves were now in place, but Yugao had only done 2 buttons. He patted her on top of the head, missing the small blush on her cheeks. What did he want? She asked, pulling away from him, and looking up at his face. He turned his head out and looked across the village. He just wants to have fun. Years. His feet landed without a sound, a black suit covering his form, hiding his identity from anyone who was seeking it. He reached up to his back, a seal on his right shoulder glowing white for a moment, bringing his hand back to his front. His bow formed. A quiver slowly burning into existence on his back. With deft movements his hand reached up, pulling an arrow out and notching it on his bow. His trained eye still on his target. Pulling the string back, he made sure the shot was lined up. His fingers slowly letting go of the string, watching as his arrow flew true, without a sound, breaking through the glass and striking through his target's skull, pinning him to the wall. 28. He vanished from where he stood, appearing up in a tree moments later. Stepping back into the shadows to stay hidden as he lined up the shot, his chakra keeping him to the tree. 2 guards. Pulling another arrow from his quiver, the 2 guards were talking as they walked. The bowstring was tight, his fingers slipping from it once again as the arrow flew. This time Naruto vanished with it, his arrow cutting through one of the guards cleaning. His friend looking to where his partner was now that it had gone quiet. He gasped seeing the pool of blood that was forming. He reached up to talk into his communicator. He went to speak but only a gargle came out. Raising his head to his throat it was wet. Looking around, suited child walked out of the shadows, fiddling with the blood-covered kunai. Good night. A quick flick of his wrist, his hands were now free and a dull thud sounded as his continued through the night. All guards down, now working my way inside. Roger Taicho. He frowned. His partner was so young, 10 years old, a female with purple hair. She was too inexperienced to be doing this op, hence why Naruto made her sit back and watch from a distance. He quickly scaled the wall, stopping next to a window. Taking a quick peek, he saw his targets. He picked the lock for the window and let himself in, disabling the trap and dropping his feet to the ground. There was a stir from the bed, as he moved his bow to his back. It vanished while his hand stayed there, a katana forming just as he reached the bed. 2 quick slices, no noise. He watched as the sheets became strained. Corrupt fire country lords, his orders came from the daimyo this time. Had he just become a tool for his village to hire out? The door to the bedroom he was in slowly opened and a child, maybe the age of 4, walked in slowly, crying out about a nightmare. Naruto frowned under his mask. There was no notes about there being children. His kanta was sealed away as he moved forward, not a drop on his person. He quickly checked for a henge, finding it was not. He crouched down to the girl's level, letting the helmet of his suit fall away, his red eyes spinning. A small mole sat under her lips on the left side. Her gray eyes looked up into his, allowing him to cast the genjutsu. You are to go back to bed, little one. When you wake in the morning, you will pack food and water into a bag and walk. You are to keep walking until you find someone you know. Now go to bed, little one. The nightmare will be over soon. She small child clutched her teddy bear closely, giving him a small nod and walking back out of the room. Naruto sighed, quickly cutting off the heads of his targets and putting them into a scroll. His helmet scaling back up from his neck, covering his head. He once again became one with the shadows as he walked down the halls, finding his way to the cellar. He quickly cut through the lock and pushed the door open. Girls of all ages laid huddled in a mess. Straw was thrown onto the ground for bedding, while their water and food was kept in dishes like they were animals. Your captors are gone, the guards are dead, you are free. He spoke, vanishing and letting them go, a pair of green eyes burning that image into her mind. She would not forget that outfit. Naruto dropped down onto a tree. He made the motion needed for his partner to come out. She took a shaky step forward, her purple hair sparkling in the moonlight. Taicho. She bowed. Naruto stood to his full height, a foot higher than the girl, and patted her head. Come on, Nico, the mission is done, let's head home. Disclaimer: I do not own Naruto. A sickening snap was heard in the small office, followed by the sound of blood dripping against the floor. 2 blondes looked shocked at the bored black-haired man, bone currently protruding from his arm. Why did you go and do that? Naruto casually looked up to the blonde-haired Senju, question written on his face. You said we wasted your time? So I gave you something to heal. He motioned to his arm. Minato pointed at the arm for a few moments, giving his son an almost sick look. Is that muscle? Tsunade let out a sigh as she looked at Naruto's arm, gulping down her breakfast that threatened to come back up. Yes it is. Doesn't that hurt, Naruto? He looked at his arm, then to Tsunade, finally letting his gaze stay upon his arm. Kinda, so I guess technically I still require healing. He rose a brow to Tsunade, who just put her hands up and shook her head. Gaki, I know you can heal that yourself. Naruto shrugged his shoulder and snapped his arm back into place, using his right hand to heal it up. Now that I am back here for a bit, are you going to reconsider the medical academy? Her arms were crossed under her breasts, her feet a shoulder width apart. This was a stance Naruto was familiar with. It had only been used on him twice, but both times Yugao ended up getting a free trip to the hot springs. Now that he thought about it, it seemed like a strong jutsu. Naruto, what are you doing? Both blonde looked at the only other person in the room, who was now mimicking Tsunade's stance, or at least trying to. This jutsu, I have not been able to beat. They say the best way to learn to counter a jutsu is to learn it. He nodded his head, agreeing with himself, while the busty blonde looked at him for a few moments, slowly turning back to face Minato. And Naruto, that's not a jutsu, it is like your predatory glare. Realization struck Naruto as he quickly shifted his stance and stared at the blonde Sannin, her head shakily turning to the newfound coldness in the room. Sweat started to run down her forehead, while Naruto stood there resting his head on his knuckles and looking bored. What is this? The Sannin spluttered while Naruto rose a brow. A mixture of Ki, Kyuubi chakra and primitive facial muscles that were lost in time. Naruto gave his explanation tiredly. It allows me to appear so far above you that any conflict would just bore me, hence the bored expression. This is what I used to keep bothersome anbu in line, works every time. The pressure left the room and Naruto let out a yawn. Do you need me for anything or can I go to the hot springs? Just go Naruto, I will see you later. Hot springs? Count me in. Minato had a strange look on his face, his son and Tsunade slowly walking away from him without a care in the world. I heard Jiraiya is still out of town, so you shouldn't have to worry about people trying to sneak a peek. Sounds good, I could do with a little relaxing, it's been some time since we caught up, hasn't it, Naruto? The man in question shrugged his shoulders as they walked. A few years, you called for me just after the Uchiha incident, a nasty little problem you had there, almost makes me want to check for gray hairs just thinking about it. Tsunade brought a hand up to cover her mouth as she giggled. You were by yourself at that point, what happened to your partner? Naruto froze for a moment, the air around him going cold. Tsunade desperately struggled for breath. The crowds around them seemed to stop moving, torn between taking in the sight that was the grandchildren of Madara and Hashirama, or fleeing for their own safety. Uchiha Itachi, he was my partner. I teamed up with Nico again after the end of that year. She took careful notice of the frown on his face. I am sorry, I just do not like speaking about what happened in public. She got the hidden meaning in his words. The Uchiha massacre was not what it seemed. Well, here we are, this is Konoha's finest. Well, at least in my books anyway. The Senju motioned to the entrance, Naruto walking behind her and paying for the both of them. They went down the separate halls and changed to enter the springs. I am telling you, Kurenai, this is the best way to relax on a day off. I hardly doubt this is what Naruto was planning for us when he gave it to us. Two beauties walked in through the doors, paying and entering the change rooms. Naruto sat himself down nice and comfortably, letting out a soft groan as the steamy water touched against his skin. As he sat down in the water, it bubbled and boiled, steam raising even higher and blocking him away from view. Yuga was right, these are relaxing. He scratched his back along the stones in the wall, enjoyed the burning feeling they gave off. He took the face towel from the back of his head and draped it over his eyes, slowly seeping further into the water, letting himself slowly disconnect from the world. He is all right, even if he is a Uchiha. Tsunade leaned back, resting an arm over her breasts. She had heard a rumor that if they were large enough they floated. She was not willing to test it, especially in a public spring. A brow was risen as voices entered the area. One of them she noticed instantly. Gaki. She nodded to the purple-haired girl who froze in her steps. Ah, hey there, Tsunade-sama. The nervous Anko scratched her head sheepishly as she entered the soothing waters. This is my friend Kurenai. The raven beauty gave a shy wave to the Senju. No need to be shy, girls, we are all naked in here. The Senju let out a long sigh as she dropped the face towel over her eyes. Although even I can tell Kurenai has a killer figure. She lazily pointed a finger in their general direction, causing the woman in question to gasp. The blonde responded by laughing loudly, disturbing another patron. Tsunade, it is not wise to have fun at other people's expense. Maybe that is why you are so unlucky. Mama Naruto, it is a day to relax, just go back to whatever you were doing. I was reminiscing about that time you got the Hokage to bail you out of jail. I would have never thought a Senju could look so happy to see a Uchiha. She heard his small laugh and scrunched the washcloth up, removing it from her face, only to see a relatively pink duo sitting in the water. I take it you both know Naruto then? Slow nods were her response. How do you know him? Anko's hand shot up, signaling she would answer the question. I am like his little sister. Kurenai here is a possible future lava. Hand was promptly shut over Anko's mouth while the girl who was just spoken about was trying to impersonate a tomato. You will have to forgive her, Tsunade-sama. It seems that she must have had too much to drink this morning. Anko bit into the hand that covered her mouth. This action elicited a yelp from Kurenai. Little Kurenai has a thing for Naruto, eh? Anko nodded proudly while Kurenai let out a little eep and covered her face. Hey Naruto? Her face was no longer covered, she was now giving a mortified look to the Senju in the bath. Yes, Tsunade? His ever-calm voice came through the wall. I ran into this girl this morning, I think her name was Kyrin? She held her fingers up in the shu symbol, telling the girls to be quiet. Do you mean Kurenai? Maybe, can you describe her for me? I was thinking about taking her on as an apprentice. She has a curvy figure, almost like a dancer, black hair that comes down past the small of her back, and ruby-red eyes. Also, that idea may have to wait. I am training her for the Jounin exams. Tsunade rose a brow at the genjutsu user who slowly sunk into the water. Yeah, that's her all right. Have you seen the look she gets? Naruto smirked with his face towel still covering his eyes. Yeah, got into a fight because of her 2 months or so back. I think I still owe her a drink anyhow. Kurenai frowned as the words left his mouth. Tsunade just gave a small snicker. So where is she staying, so I can talk to her about some training? With me at the moment. Her house is undergoing repairs, or so Anko says. You mean that 2-bedroom house in 44? Yeah, what's wrong with my house? The confusion was evident in his voice. It's just that on the way back to the village, I was speaking with Anko. She said Irika normally stayed the night at hers, so where does Kurenai sleep? The smirk that had been tugging at his lips deepened. I try to give her as much room as possible, but normally she insists that I sleep in my bed with her. Tsunade rose a brow to the woman in question, who managed to blush an even deeper shade of red. Their attention was quickly drawn by a spike of chakra on the other side of the wall. Sorry to cut this short, but I have been called by the Hokage. I will catch up with you later. Also, please try to remember I have sensor capabilities, girls. Tsunade started laughing again as Naruto left, quickly donning his armor and moving through the village. You knew the entire time, didn't you, Tsunade-sama? Questioned the purplet in the bath. Tsunade now had an incredibly innocent look on her face. Nico dropped down next to Naruto as he entered the tower, quickly dusting herself off and clearing her throat. Yes, Nico? I just wanted to make sure you were okay, Naruto-sama. He gave a soft smile. I am fine, Nico. You should resume your duties, otherwise Hokage-sama may have to punish you. She shook her head with vigor. I have been tasked with following you around and recording the methods you use to teach the Jounin. I am currently fulfilling my duties. Naruto rose a brow, giving a small shrug of his shoulders. Fine, but get into civilian clothes. I don't want people getting the wrong idea. Me being escorted around by anbu all the time, it might freak them out, you know. Yugao nodded and vanished. Naruto just gave a small sigh and continued through the halls, quickly making his way to the top, the anbu each bowing to him as he entered his father's office. Sometimes I wonder who they would listen to if it came down to it. Minato mused out loud, causing the now re-hidden shadows to tremble. I taught them to listen to you, that is if the commander is not present. Seeing how they still act this way, I shall assume that spot is still empty. Minato nodded and pulled out a file, handing it across to Naruto. He gazed down at it, quickly looking it over before looking back at his father. When I open this, I am not going to find what I did last time, will I? He opened the file without waiting for an answer, frowning as he read along it. I can't, not now that people know who I was, it goes against anbu code. Minato stood from behind his desk, pulling out a second file and slapping it down. Clan heads cannot be an anbu, you have to choose, one or the other. In both positions you will be helping the village in ways only you can. If I decline both? Minato froze and looked at his son. Sasuke is next in line for the Uchiha head. I am now out in the open, people will start to figure out who I was in anbu. That means I am not eligible for either. Plus they are both optional positions. The facts were all laid out in front of the blonde Kage. Then you will take on a genin team? The room grew a few degrees colder as Naruto looked up at his father. This is what you were pushing for. Naruto's hands crushed the edge of Minato's desk as the two looked at each other. I am not good with kids, I produce people who will kill without a second thought. Do you want me to turn your daughter into the same monster I am? Black eyebrows were twitching in anger, this suggestion was absurd. Naruto, the village made you into what you are. I am trying to bring you back to being my son. Naruto stood up and turned away from his father, his hand stopping on the handle to leave. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, I have to decline those positions, none of them are well suited for me. I will be off training if I am needed. The door was pushed open and Naruto took a single step outside. Naruto. He paused and turned his head to the side, his golden eyes meeting his father's blue. You still need to decide Kushina's punishment. Naruto looked back out the door and frowned, it was hidden from the others. I already have. When the both of us have free time, get us together. Is there anything else? When he didn't hear anything from his father, he stepped from the room, closing the door behind him. Kurenai had enjoyed the remainder of her time in the hot springs. She relaxed and pushed away all the thoughts that were running through her head. Hey Kure-chan, let's head home? And then they all came rushing back. The fact that Naruto knew they were there is what bothered her the most. How had they forgotten that little fact that he was always able to tell where they were without looking? I will be out soon, Anko. The purplet shrugged her shoulders as she jumped out, moving into the changing rooms, leaving Tsunade and Kurenai in the springs. Naruto, he more than likely does not know, and will not know how you feel about him, not until you just confess to him. You need to remember he was kept away from the rest of he doesn't understand relationships. The Senju spoke softly as she moved past Kurenai and got out, leaving her to dwell on her thoughts for a few moments, before the crimson-eyed woman climbed out and made her way to the rooms. It did not take her long to change and start heading back to Training Ground 44. They made their way to the house rather quickly, opening the door to find it empty again, like it had been the past few days. Kurenai moved to the bench and found a note on top of a book for her. Kurenai, I saw you taking an interest in this and a few others. I have laid the others out on the bed for you. I do not know how long I will be away. Train hard until I get back, okay? It was short, but it still made her feel a little better that he hadn't forgotten about her training. She heard screaming and found a petrified Anko, pinned to the wall by Kunai, one landing next to her head with a note. Anko, you need to work on improving your infiltration methods. Thus I rigged a trap up to your end of the house. It will change every day. Train hard and enjoy. That sadistic bastard. Enko turned her head and saw the book in her friend's hand. He lent you bad blood, eh? It's a good book. His family was a little strange though, makes you wonder what would have become of him, had they still been alive, you know. Enko took the book from her for a moment, flipping through some pages and finally coming to the one she was looking for. He always told me to not try these without asking him first. I guess the same rule would be given to you. Interesting as hell though. Kurenai knew this page well. It was a parting gift. In exchange I got to look over this book again. His words ran through her head. Tier 3 manipulation. Skimming through the text she found something that stood out. Golden Eyes of the Thunder God. A byproduct from obtaining Tier 3 in lightning manipulation. In order to reach this stage, like the other stages, you must become one with the element. Each asks you to go to extreme life-endangering lengths. Lightning is no different. You are to become one with the storm and attract its power into your body. Golden Eyes of the Thunder God. It is still in question as to what they are capable of, or whether it is just a change in appearance. Rumors state that eyesight is better during a storm, but alas, nothing can be proven. She pulled the book away from her for the moment. Naruto has golden eyes. Was it just chance, or did he follow what the book said? Uchihas are meant to have a fire affinity. She mused, flicking through the pages, stopping at the one with the red embroiled border. Her fingers ran the border, feeling the heat that came from it. Stomach of the Dragon. A byproduct from obtaining the legendary Tier 3 in fire manipulation. Simply, your body becomes more adaptable to the flames. They now become a source of power, sustenance, and pleasure. She blushed a little at the thought. It seems his clan really are a bunch of hotheads. A small chuckle escaped her lips. Ingesting fire. This is the only way to start the mutation. It forces your body to adapt to the needed levels so you can preform Katan Jutsu of the highest level. Sign your name below so we can keep track of the Uchiha's likelihood to reach this stage. Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Izuna. Uchiha Izanami. Uchiha Naruto. The names, she had heard about Izuna being Madara's brother, and Naruto being his grandson, but where did Izanami fit into this? Izanami. She heard some shuffling from Enko's room as the purple-haired girl made her way out, scratching the back of her head. Uchiha Izanami? Kurenai looked up in question, giving a slow nod. That's the name of Naruto's mom. He is rather touchy about that subject, so be careful with using that name. You should put that book down for now. Reading it for long periods of time, it's not good for us. Without the Sharingan we only get half the information, meaning we start thinking with only half the information. Enko sighed as she stretched out, peering over Kurenai's shoulder. She rested a finger on the top of the page, a small amount of chakra flowing from it, and arranged the words in a different order. See, you only get half the information, this helps give a little more. Naruto says that there is about 5 or 6 pages worth of content on each page, layered upon each other with genjutsu and fuinjutsu. His grandfather was a genuous, a man but a genuous. She chimed, walking back into the kitchen. Kurenai looked over the now changed page, seeing a list of jutsu, ways to improve your control and even change its flight path once it has left your mouth. Naruto-sama, must you always hide away on this day? He paused in his step, the onyx tiles beneath him cooling his feet. He slowly turned to face his companion. Yugao, you know I dislike the idea, plus being here allows me to go through grandfather and mother's books. He stepped towards her, his body coming within inches of her own as she closed her eyes. Here you could still brush up on some kenjutsu while I am reading. A book was dropped into her hands. Looking to her left she saw it was taken from right next to her head. Hi Naruto-sama. Naruto was currently in a pair of black robes. A deep red edging lay on the cuffs while the Uchiha fan was fixed on the back. His footfalls were silent, showing his years of training as he stalked through the library, looking for something to fixate himself with. The book she held contained advanced kenjutsu katas. Sadly she did not feel in the mood to train. Looking across to her idol and former partner, it looked like he was content with saturating himself in this melancholy. Naruto pulled out a leather-bound book. He played with the spine, looking lazily around the room, his eyes narrowed at a small disturbance. Tai Long, for today, could you please just leave me alone? I am not in the mood to argue with you. The sounds of padded paws hitting the ground from next to him caused Naruto to frown. I am only here to provide company, just like him. He closed his eyes and sighed. He is right, Kit. Minato sighed as he entered his home, his feet dragging along the ground as he walked through the dimly lit halls. It was bright up ahead. He knew he was coming to the kitchen, however it was a sight he hadn't expected to see. Little Natsumi was working behind the marble bench. The oven was currently on and baking. Natsumi-chan, I told you we should just leave him be tonight. The blonde in question stood up and glared at her father. It isn't right, he should be treated like everybody else. With a pout on her face she crossed her arms across her chest. Minato walked towards her, making her stiffen. He rested a gentle hand on top of her head. I have made mistakes, that is something I won't deny, but Naruto is adamant on spending this night alone. Plus I don't even know where he is. Minato moved back, taking his hand from her head and moving to the hallway again. Tusan, it's not right, you shouldn't be alone on your birthday. Minato froze in his steps, turning his head back to face his daughter. How did you find out? I looked at your calendar, you keep all the important dates there. She was proud for figuring it out and turned around taking the contents from the over. So, I made a cake, Ka-san wouldn't help me so I don't know how good it is, but I tried my hardest, I just want him to know that he doesn't have to be alone anymore. A small smile came to the father's face, letting his eyes close and think on the present. If you tried the old Uchiha mansion, you might have some luck, he hides out there from time to time. I didn't tell you though, okay? He didn't even need to look to know Natsumi was beaming a smile at him right now. Don't ask him too many questions if you do run into him though. Minato made his way from the room. It must be hard for his son, sharing the day of your birth with the end of your clan. Yugao was wandering around the house. Naruto had locked himself away in the study, leaving her on the other side of the lock. Now she had nothing to do really. Scuffing her feet along the ties, her arms tight behind her back, she made her way to the front door, hearing the sound of someone striking against it. Swinging the large cathedral-like doors open, she gasped. Natsumi-chan, why are those two with you? She held back the urge to scowl. I wanted to see Naruto and I found these two sitting in a bar, so I asked them if they wanted to come along. She tilted her head to the side in a cute way. Yugao, now fighting the urge to run forward and hug her, leaned against the large doors. You can come in. I doubt he will see you though, he locked everyone out of the study about an hour ago. Yugao motioned for Natsumi to come in, shutting the door on the others. Nico-chan, do you really dislike them that much? Yugao looked as innocent as ever. Call me Yugao-chan, don't use my anbu name when I am without a mask. Also, I have no idea what you are talking about. Her toes were pointed to the ground, swiveling back and forth. Natsumi let out a groan as she tried to open the doors. Having put the cake down on the ground, she put her whole weight into prying them open, heavy. Natsumi-chan, do they really need to come in? After getting the needed nod from the blonde, Yugao moved forward and swiped her hands along the handles, infusing them with chakra. This swung the doors open again. Get in, you can thank Natsumi-chan. The blonde scratched the back of her head and gave a large smile. Bending down to pick up the cake, she missed the glare that the girls gave one another. Take your pettiness elsewhere. I am in no mood to put up with them, let alone will I let you bother Naruto with your issues. I couldn't have said it better myself, Leo. I take it your clan has become interested as well then? Two felines moved from the shadows, standing proud in front of the humans. Tai Long of the tigers and the jet black Leo of the lions. The glow of his red eyes bathing the halls in an eerie red hue. The clans have started to move. Daviali Clade has left him to wallow, saying he would only tarnish their already shaky name. It seems hardly anyone wishes to place their faith in a Uchiha. The large lion spared the occupants in the room a glance. It was all he needed, deeming them unworthy. He has isolated himself now, correct? Tai Long gave a small nod to the lion as he walked forward. Come, we have much to discuss. Also, ninjins, if you get in my way, I will crush you. The two felines walked down the halls, leaving the group of girls in a flabbergasted-like state. TT, that was Leo, boss of the lion summons, head of the Felidae. Running her hands through a string of jutsu, she slammed them against the ground, a small puff of smoke coming up. Mistress Yugao, how may I be of service? An elegant voice broke through the smoke as it slowly dissipated, revealing a dark blue house cat. Sasha-chan, do you know why Leo is here? The cat rose a brow as it smelled the air. Cats had a fairly decent sense of smell, not on the level of the dogs, but it was still enough if someone had been through here in the past few hours. Hee, Leo-sama is looking for the first Felidae summoner. We managed to nib Uchiha Naruto away from the other clans on poker night, so to stop arguing amongst the Felidae, Leo-sama decided he would test Uchiha Naruto's worth for himself. Sasha had her right paw raised in the air as she spoke, her eyes closed tight and a small smile on her face. The girls went to move forward, but Sasha appeared in front of them, blocking the stairs. Bad idea. Leo-sama will be down with his answer soon. She was cut off as the house started to shake. Yugao, Anko and Kurenai fixing themselves to the ground with chakra. Natsumi was sadly unable to do so. It was not much longer before they were able to feel the heat flowing from the staircase. A few moments later, a large torrent of flames tore through the house, bounding around the black figure as it slowly moved forward. I like him, little Sasha, Tai Long. It will not be long before you bow to him too. Get used to the sight of his feet. The black lion snorted as he walked past, vanishing into black flames. The flames from the stairs licking the hair of Tai Long as he marked where they would stop. If you truly care about him, do not go up those steps. He is not in the right mind at the moment. Before he even got the chance to finish his sentence, they had already moved past them. He didn't even bat an eyelid, already knowing how the ninja would react. They were predictable. The group was frozen, staring in awe at what they were seeing. It wasn't like this when I left. Rods of lightning sprung to the ceiling. Their feet were covered in soot while red eyes loomed around them. Leave! His voice boomed through the halls, nearly knocking them from their feet. The air was dry, making it hard to breathe. A hand covered in lightning burst through the door, shattering it apart, and sending splinters forwards. They burned to ash before hitting the group in front of him. His eyes glowed red, now clad in a samurai style of pants, bandages covering the lower half of his torso. His hair had turned to flames that moved on their own while lightning coursed around bare and toned body. Please leave. He sounded almost desperate. It did not last long as soft steps entered their ears. That form is not ugly, Naruto. It lets your elements run free, for all to see. Be proud to have the 3 most offensive types of element affinity. Tai's ever-calm voice broke across the halls. It shows what I was made for. I leave ash and soot in my wake, as the gods themselves try to strike me down. Is this how a human should feel? That he is just a weapon to be pointed at the enemy. He clenched his fists, and the lightning increased its effect, tearing the ground apart. And Naruto-kun Kurenai took a step forward, feeling the heat of the flames against her outstretched arm, the lightning stinging as it struck her skin. You are the monster, you're Naruto, our friend, brother and mentor. Natsumi took a step forward, showing the cake to her older brother. It was a Western-style recipe that she had found buried away. It was called a mud cake? She thought that the name was strange, but when she had mixed its contents together she saw where its name came from. Naruto and I don't want you to be a stranger anymore. I want you to be the older brother you were meant to be, to help me with being a ninja and to talk to me when I am lonely. I want you to be my Oniai-san. With a bright smile on her face she struggled forward through the heat. Naruto's eyes started to soften as she moved forward, pausing as the others strode next to her. Hey, we need you back, Oniai-chan. The village is so boring without you. Plus, who is going to teach me to be a super kick-ass jounin if it ain't you? His spiky little sister spoke, causing his eyes to weaken. Long purple hair flowed behind her as she came to a stop. Without you, Naruto-sama, who will keep the recruits in line when they mess up? Better yet, who will stop all the bar fights just by looking? Try as hard as she could, the words she wanted to say would not come out of her mouth. His frame became looser and his shoulders slouched forward. Taking an easy step forward, his lips, something warm pressed up against them. A hand cupping his cheek, the warmth slowly left, and he let his eyes open, taking in the crimson eyes that were looking at him. I want to get to know you better, Naruto-kun. I know you are a good person, you just need to start showing us the you that wants to be shown. She shone him a true smile as the flames started to turn back into his black hair. The lightning no longer stung against her skin. His heavy hand nervously coming up and wrapping around her lithe form. Thank you, Kurenai. Thank you, everyone. I won't let you down. Looking around the room at the girls, he noticed the cake in Natsumi's hands. Natsumi, is that a mud cake? The blonde's eyes widened a little at having it recognized so quickly. Don't be so shocked, Natsumi-chan. Naruto-sama did a handful of missions in the Western lands, made quite the name for himself while he was there. It is also over there that he got his sweet tooth, a Ripper Jack? His eyebrows twitched. It was not one of his better jobs. You mean Jack the Ripper? The one in the trench coat asked. Hi, that was I. Such a pesky man my employer was, but a job is a job. It would bring shame to the village if I didn't go through with it. His head dropped a little and he felt the arms around him tighten, as something pressed into his chest. How did we go from talking about cake to work? He could feel the vibrations her words made echo through his chest. It was strange, she was so close now, but he didn't feel the need to act against it. Ninjans, all you lot ever do is work. Naruto let a smile tug at his lips. Let's forget about this, there is cake. That was the commander she knew and adored. Happy birthday, Naruto and I. The raven-haired male rose a brow at her while the others gasped, not having known today was that day. Well, I guess it is, thank you, Natsumi. He closed his eyes as he smiled wide. The excitable blonde pulled a candle from one of the many holders along the wall. It was a surprise that they had been left unscathed, holding it above the cake and giving her older brother a smile when he looked at her confused. You're meant to blow it out and make a wish, silly. The fact that he had to be told what it was for managed to make the others in the room frown. Kurenai moved from his arms, standing off to the side as Naruto moved forward and blew the candle out. I wish to be seen as a human. Days passed by quickly for the group. Naruto had been supervising the training Anko and Kurenai were going through. At the same time he was giving Sasuke smaller exercises, to help him be able to build himself as a better person. Those things were unimportant now. He was in the middle of a large room, standing behind a bench. Not too far to his left stood Kushina, in the very same position as he. I assume you have come to your decision, Naruto-san? Hyuga Hayashi, head of the Hyuga clan, a royal pain when you were in his bad books. Sadly for the majority of the people in the room, Naruto had been his personal guard for some time. In Izukatsu, primal was the only way Naruto could describe her. She had a tendency to run off of her baser instincts. It was also something that got her into a lot of trouble. Shinobi needed to think with a clear mind at all times. Naro Shikaku, lazy genius. That was all that really needed to be said about the man. his friends Yamanaka and Noichi, head of T.I, an incredibly cunning man when he needed to be, and Akimichi Choza, the human tank. Each of them had an air in Natsume's class. He was interested to see what the new generation of Ino Shikacho would be capable of. The head of the Uzumaki clan stood next to him. She did not need to be explained, nor did the head of the Senju, one Senju Tsunade. Sarutobi-sama sat quivering in his seat. Looking between the powerhouses in the room, he felt out of place. Most would think that he was too young to step up to the plate. It was ironic that they thought along that line while trying to push Naruto to fill the sparse Uchiha spot. The Aburame clan led by Shibi, Naruto had met the man once or twice. They sat on mutual ground, either fans of one another nor were they enemies. His father filled two roles. He acted as both Namikaze's clan head and the Hokage. His vote was counted twice. The civilians were left out of this gathering. It would be too troublesome to have them involved if you asked a certain clan head. The elders Mitokado Hamura, Yudatane Koharu and Shimura Danzo, the first two did not see eye to eye with the raven-haired Uchiha. Danzo, on the other hand, seemed to always smile a little when Naruto was around. I have honorable council members. I will not ask anything extensive. I merely wish to show her what she did to me, by having her watch my memories. The council blinked at his response. You can be much harsher, Naruto-san. You do understand that, don't you? He tilted his head to the side. Such a pain at times, always wanting to go flat out. Yes, I know. I could always rob my sister of her mother, but I shall not. That is a pain I do not wish on her. Plus my head is not a pretty place. Yamanaka and Noichi can testify to that. Naruto motioned to the blonde man who gulped. It is true, all anbu are required to be scanned quarterly so they can be assessed whether they are still fit for duty or not. We ended up stopping this method with the executors. Naruto broke them time and time again until they became exactly what their name suggests. But as we can see, they are still able to move around and live their everyday life outside of anbu. I lost more than a few clan members to the asylum due to those scans. Never once did we have to pull an executor though. The blonde sat down and nodded. He almost pitied Kushina. He had seen some of the things Naruto had done. Afterwards he was reunited with his breakfast. Minato crossed his hands in front of his face, peering down at his wife and son, both not moving an inch while they waited. Do you have anything to say for yourself, Uzumaki Kushina? The redhead took a deep breath and closed her eyes for a moment, slowly opening them and looking around the room. I did what I had to protect my daughter and my husband. Would you not do the same in my position? The clan heads frowned and Tsunade's fingers clenched around the edge of the desk, nearly snapping it off. When none of the clan heads responded, she hung her head. You need to stop living in the past, Kushina, otherwise we will just continue this circle of hatred. Both of our clans now lay in ruins, yet you still wish to continue fighting. I see no reason to that. My vision has always been clouded by darkness, so I learned to close my eyes, to listen instead of see. In a way, you made me what I am today. His voice was calm as he moved to stand in front of her, looking over to his father and getting the nod that he needed to go ahead. This is what you caused. He closed his eyes, moving the hair away from his left eye, showing its now clear skin and a spinning black Fuma shuriken on a red background. Tsukuyomi. A red moon. Its light was reflected in the sky, giving an eerie and clouded feeling about the place she was in. Looking around, she noticed her body was bound on a cross. Standing in front of her was Naruto, a katana in his hand. He stepped forward and she struggled in her binds. Sorry about that. It's the default settings of this jutsu. Mainly it is used for torture. I mainly use it to transfer large amounts of information in just moments. Let me just cut you down. She looked at him with narrowed eyes, struggling a little more. It seemed she would have to let him. These bindings would not move. With a small flick of his wrist, she fell down into his outstretched arm, quickly pushing herself away in disgust. Naruto frowned. It would seem her hatred ran much deeper than he had originally thought. Can we just get this done? I don't want to be any closer to you than I have to be. The katana vanished from his hands and he brushed the hair out of his left eye. In here, I will show you different events that your seal has caused. For the next 4 days, you will be traveling along with me, as we exit and enter each event. You will have time to get used to me. A few moments passed on the outside and Naruto took a step back, wiping the blood away from his eye. He slowly stood back to his full height and let out a sigh. It seemed that was all he needed to do as Kushina fell to the ground in a quivering heap. Now you know what you have done. Gomen, Gomen, Gomen. She repeated into the ground. It seemed to become something of a mantra to her, as she was still repeating it minutes later, when Naruto and Kyuubi had finished repairing the damages the jutsu had caused. Naruto shook his head looking at his stepmother. It wasn't that bad. Also, you should apologize to them, not me. The council looked hard at him for a few minutes, and he shrugged his shoulders. She experienced the pain I felt when I had to fight against the seal, along with the memories, seeing the sleeping faces as I fought, so I didn't bring harm to them. Kushina, stop, stand up, you are a clan head, your punishment is dealt. Now once you apologize to them, I will forgive you, but now you are being pitiful, don't set a bad example for Natsume to follow, be strong. Naruto moved forward and picked her up by the back of her kimono, lifting her to her feet, and letting go gently, leaving his hands there to steady her if she fell again. Hi Naruto. Her words coming out staggered as she continued to attempt to catch her breath. The council seemingly shocked at how quickly she changed her view on the boy before them. She just spent 4 days, going through some of the Tama things her seal did to me. I had to help carry her around after the 2nd day. It is somewhat natural that there would be some kind of bonding. 4 days alone with one person as you sifted through their memories. They could understand the connection you would feel. Am I needed for anything else, or may I take my leave? The council gave him their best wishes. He moved to the door and stopped at the sound of Kushina's voice. Naruto, I truly am sorry, I thought it was for the best. He rose a brow and turned to face her. Like I said, Kushina, do not apologize to me, it's the others that need it. The door opened and closed in one motion, Naruto vanishing along with it. Tsunade cleared her throat and looked around at the other members of the council. You know that if it was anyone other than Naruto, they would have asked for your head, right? Kushina nodded at the words from the Senju. As long as you know that he has more of a heart than most, it saddens me that people only see him as a weapon. Minato nodded as he looked over the council. He has requested to have a few months of leave after the Jounin examinations. Does anyone see any issues with this? A few of the members stood. Will he not be taking the team with Uchiha Sasuke on it? Minato gulped down the rising bile in his throat. It was an argument he had many times with his son. He has made it clear, he will not take the seat on the council or be taking a team. He has stated that he will help train any genin team if he is free. There was some murmuring around the council before they gave a collected nod. We see no issue. Has he given a reason? He says he wants to finish some training of his in the land of iron. Too slow. Naruto chimed, dodging the strikes from both Kurenai and Anko. With his katana still in its sheath, he slapped both of them on the backs of the legs, sending them to the ground. His eyes were closed, and he rested his weight on his blade. I am only moving at high Jounin speeds, plus I am fighting blind. You need to move faster and remove the emotion from your strikes. They both struggled to stand, swaying a little in their stances. Hi Naruto-kun / Oniai-chan. He frowned at Anko, causing her to chuckle. Gaki, I am going to look forward to hitting you again. He muttered, pushing himself back onto his feet, holding his covered blade in reverse. Now come, you only need to land a hit. He gave a small bow, listening to the movement of their feet, quickly jumping back and dispelling the genjutsu that was cast. He frowned as the scent of poison hit his nose, turning his head to the source and hearing a hiss. Using your snakes so early, Anko? You should have kept them hidden from your opponent until you could no longer afford to. With grace only heard of in fairy tales, he struck each snake that came out of her sleeves on top of its head, causing them to hiss and dispel. He shuffled back an inch as Kunai struck the ground he had just been standing on. Kurenai, you should have predicted the movement and set a second trap. He heard the sound of metal piercing the air and smiled. I stand corrected, the delay was a little too long though. Bringing his blade out of its case, he cut through the kunai coming for his back, causing the girls to gasp as they were perfectly in half, the resounding click, telling them it was back where it belonged and already in its reverse grip again. The air around him became hotter, and he knew it was not him. Katon, encampment wall. His flames quickly swallowing the ones that had been sent towards him, he could hear the ragged breaths of his students and smiled. You are doing well, keep it up. It was not a taunt, he was being honest with them, it was something they had learned how to tell the difference with. Anko took a deep breath and steadied herself, bringing a kunai up in front of her chest, leaning it off to the side. I have had enough holding back. Her exclamation caused Naruto to raise a bow, waving his hand at her to say come on. Anko dashed forward, Kurenai moving in behind her, stringing together signs. Naruto felt the invasion of foreign chakra and quickly purged it, not moving, letting her think she was successful. Anko was smirking as she closed the distance on Naruto, his visage blurred before her, and she felt a dull pain strike the back of her leg, taking her to the ground. Kurenai stiffened as Naruto appeared in front of her, his katana held to the side, walking forward, his eyes still closed. He paused less than an inch away from her mouth. A small tap struck the side of her leg. Too slow, Kurenai. The slight roll of his tongue on her name caused her form to quiver. The mix of mint and chocolate clung to his breath. Belladonna. Everything about him led her back to this thought. A quick spin of his feet, and he strode back to the middle of the clearing. That is enough for the day. I have an appointment to keep. His crimson eyes slowly opening and taking in the flustered look on Genjutsu user's face. Are you okay, Kurenai? While the concern in his voice was touching, she could not find the words to respond, nodding dumbly to give her answer. I will see you later tonight? She stiffened and looked at him nervously. Actually, the repairs are done. I will be moving back into my house tonight. He rose a brow and looked to her in question. Understandable. I will also be moving. The Uchiha mansion needs to be maintained, plus the village is pushing me to claim it as my own. He groaned out. The house in the forest of death, is to become part of the training ground. Kurenai felt a shiver run down her back. It was a scary thought, turning that area into a part of the training ground. I will see you when I see you then, you will know where to find me. Tai Long stepped out of a strange portal next to Naruto, giving the man a nod before they both vanished into a plume of black flames. No matter how many times I see that, it still looks badass. Kurenai could only agree with the view of her purple-haired friend. What are we doing here, Naruto-san? Sasuke's question was not out of place, as they pair passed through large metal doors that ached under their own weight. They were greeted by a group of anbu that quickly lead them through the main halls. Sasuke could feel his very life being drained as they moved through this place. I am getting rid of something that could cause you to die in the field. The smaller Uchiha rose a brow and looked at Naruto. Said man did not even take a pause as he continued moving. They walked in relative silence, one that was only broken by the soft footfalls of Sasuke. This continued for a few minutes before Naruto and the anbu paused in front of a large metal door, a square of bars around the 5-foot mark, allowing you to see what was inside the room. Naruto turned to the small child and handed him a kunai. It was slightly longer than the average one, but it still felt familiar in Sasuke's undertrained hands. In you go, only one of you can leave. Sasuke rose a brow but nodded nonetheless, slowly walking into the room once it was opened. The door snapped shut behind him and the rattling of chains filled the air. They say, if I kill you, I can go free. His voice was dry, and his figure was weak. Sasuke gulped, steadying his kunai and flipping it into a reverse grip. I will not become some ticket to freedom. It finally clicked to him. He was in a prison. He didn't understand why though. The man slowly walked forward, showing his scar-riddled body and the stitches that ran across his eye. Remember, the winner walks free. Naruto called from behind the door, letting his golden eyes open, allowing him to see the movements of their chakra. It was times like these that his cursed eyes came in handy. A small fire raged inside Sasuke, causing Naruto to smirk, watching the Uchiha roll to the side as the sounds of chains hitting the ground rung through the air. Sasuke panicked. He now understood what he was meant to do. As the chain collided with the ground, he slammed his foot down. It showed him just how weak the man in front of him was. Sasuke was by no means a bulky 12-year-old, he was slim. So it almost shocked him that the man was unable to pull the chain from beneath his feet. The before him held the same shocked look. It was now thanks to Naruto's training that he recovered first, rolling across the ground again. During the roll, he snaked the released shackles of the man around his arm and yanked forward, pulling the person off balance. 2 cuts, one on the thigh, a second across the calf muscle. The man staggered forward, bellowing out a roar of pain, fire burning in his eyes as his senses dimmed from a rush of adrenaline. Sweat ran down the young Uchiha's face. He was in no way tired physically, but this small tussle was proving that he was not ready for a life-and-death situation. He could feel his heart pounding in his ears. Irritation ate at the backs of his eyes. He dared not look away nor try to fix it. His entire focus was on his foe in front of him. That's when it happened. The man's dark brown hair, it seemed to slow to a snail's pace. He saw the man's arm come around for a haymaker. Sasuke's nimble body was able to respond, pushing the arm further and causing the man to overextend. With deft movements, the kunai was thrusted into the ribs of the prisoner. His tattered clothes now stained red as he dropped to his knees. T trust a Uchiha T to fight D dirty. The man got out as his eyes drifted shut, falling forward with a loud crack. Sasuke stood still, the kunai rolling out of his hand and clanging against the cold cobble ground. He faintly recognized that the doors was opened and the man was dragged from the room. The first kill is the hardest. I am going to say you unlocking the first level of the Sharingan was not exactly planned, but there was a high chance of it happening. Why? Naruto rose a brow at the now shaking boy. He signaled for the anbu to leave them. You ask why? Look at you now. Would you be able to fight in your condition? Sasuke shook his head weakly, his body still in shock from what had happened moments earlier. Remember what I said to you earlier? Naruto drawled out, seeing the slight look of realization come over the child's face. I am getting rid of something that could cause you to die in the field, he muttered out, looking down at his blood-covered hands. This is why I did it. Killing. It is not easy to take a life. It is best to learn how to detach yourself from emotion. I will not lie to you and say that it gets easier. You still feel the guilt each time. You will have to learn whether you could live this kind of life though. Can you see yourself killing against Sasuke? The child looked up to Naruto. From their positions now it felt like he was speaking to Kami. Naruto seemed so strong and wise. It was refreshing though. Times like this showed Sasuke that no matter how strong someone seemed, they were still human deep down. I don't know, can I have time to think? Naruto nodded and made the kunai on the floor vanish into a pile of ash, signaling it was from his special set, along with his bow and sword. You have until the graduation exams. I can still continue training you if you want though? He got a weak nod as his response. I would rather the training over winding up in hospital from a civilian brawl. Sasuke got a small chuckle out at the end of his words and steadied himself. His head still hung a little lower than it had earlier in the day. Naruto, seeing this, placed a hand on his back and gave a warm smile. The fact that you regret the action shows you are more of a man than most. How about we get you something to eat and I explain the Sharingan in more detail to you? Naruto's voice had some soothing effect on the younger Uchiha as he brought his head up a little more. Sounds good, just wait one moment please. Naruto rose a brow as Sasuke moved away from him, standing in the corner for a moment before becoming acquainted with his lunch. I had the same reaction as you after my first kill. A head of black hair raised from the corner, his hands still firmly pressed against the wall for support. That makes me feel a little better. I was 5. Naruto taunted, seeing the scowl on Sasuke's face. It made it all worth it. I take back what I said. Naruto let out a small laugh as he placed a hand on Sasuke's back and shined them back to the Uchiha mansion. They were standing in the middle of the black floors, the stones on the walls keeping the inside cooler than needed. It was a good thing that he had a high fire affinity to keep his body warm. Is this? Sasuke's question was left to hang in the air as Naruto moved around the room, a white tiger trailing behind him. Yes, this is the Uchiha mansion. It is also known as my home as of tonight. Let's get you washed up. Wouldn't want to stink out the restaurant that we go to. A soft knock bounced off of the cold walls. Naruto let out a sigh as he made his way to the door. Tai Long, can you show Sasuke to bathroom? He could have sworn that the tiger snickered before motioning with his head for Sasuke to follow. Sadly, he had not finished going up the staircase when Naruto opened the door. What is he doing here? Naruto's face was unaffected as he picked at his ear. With a lazy look at Natsumi, she quickly apologized and started speaking on a quieter level. Why is Sasuke here? You asked me why. Uchiha Sasuke is in the Uchiha mansion with myself. Uchiha Naruto, do you see a pattern here, Natsumi-chan? The blonde tapped her finger on her chin for a few moments. Suddenly it clicked. Naruto could have sworn he heard something ding inside her head. So he is like family, right? Naruto's head rolled from side to side. Kind of. I just finished training him for the day. We were about to go out for dinner if you want to come? She looked over what she was wearing and how Naruto was dressed, giving a small nod. Okay, let us wait for Sasuke then. It is a rather big day for him. He saw the confusion on her face and gave a small chuckle. You would not understand, let's just say, today he finally opened his eyes. What if Naruto becomes Anbu Commander Council bashing? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoyed this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.